Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we invite you to leave the noise of the modern world behind as we journey across the vast expanse of time to the heart of the eternal city. As you settle into your blankets, imagine the air around you growing still and scented with Mediterranean pine and ancient stone. Let your breath slow to the steady pulse of history. Feel your muscles relax as if you were reclining on a linen-draped couch in a quiet villa, safe behind thick stone walls that have stood for centuries. The city of Rome is preparing for rest, and it invites you to do the same. Close your eyes, let the torchlight flicker low, and prepare to drift into a deep, timeless sleep. Imagine you are standing on the high marble balcony of a private villa perched atop the Palatine Hill, the venerable heart of Rome. It is the fourth watch of the night, that profound and liminal hour when the world is caught in the deepest suspension of sleep. The sky above is a vast canopy of indigo, velvet and thick, where the stars hum with a distant, cold brilliance. Here, high above the valley of the Forum, the air is thin and sharply chilled, carrying the faint resinous scent of stone pines and the heavy dampness of the Tiber River mist creeping up from the lowlands. Below you, the great city stretches out like a sea of charcoal shadows, silent and immense. The grand monuments that define the empire are currently nothing more than silhouettes against the dark, great hulks of stone resting in a temporary peace. You reach out and rest your hands upon the railing of the balcony, feeling the smooth, unforgiving cold of the travertine beneath your palms. This contact provides a grounding sensation, a tactile anchor that connects your physical body to the enduring strength of the Roman earth. In this deep quiet, your senses begin to sharpen. You can hear the distant, rhythmic echo of a night watchman's iron-studded sandals striking the basalt paving stones far below. The sound is lonely and steady, a heartbeat for a city that is currently holding its breath. It fades into the distance, leaving behind a silence so absolute that you can almost hear the soft rustle of the wind passing through the laurel trees in the garden below. Looking out over the rooftops, you see the faint orange flicker of a few remaining watchfires on the Capitoline Hill. These tiny points of light serve as silent sentinels, guarding the temples of the gods while the mortals sleep. The mist from the river begins to swirl in slow, ghostly patterns around the bases of the great circuses and the arches, softening the hard edges of the architecture into a dreamlike landscape. The air shifts slightly, bringing with it the mineral smell of the river and the faint, sweet ghost of incense from a nearby shrine. You wrap your heavy wool palla tighter around your shoulders, the coarse fabric providing a layer of warmth against the pre-dawn dampness. Every breath you take is slow and deep, filling your lungs with the pristine, cool air of an empire at rest. There is no urgency here, no ticking clocks, only the ancient cyclical movement of the stars. As you wait in this high sanctuary, you feel a profound sense of safety. The thick stone walls of the villa, built to last for generations, insulate you from the world. You are a silent observer of history, standing at the precipice of a new day that has not yet begun. The darkness is not empty. It is full of the presence of millions of souls resting beneath the tiled roofs, their collective breath rising like a silent prayer into the night sky. The deep indigo of the heavens begins to soften, ever so slightly, into a bruised plum color near the horizon. This is the moment where the night begins to surrender its secrets to the light.
yet the world remains perfectly hushed. You watch the way the shadows pool in the courtyards and porticos, deep and impenetrable, hiding the busy realities of Roman life that will soon emerge. For now the city belongs only to the mist and the stone. Your mind begins to mirror the stillness of the landscape. The thoughts of the day dissolve into the vastness of the Roman night. You find yourself focusing on the simple, steady rhythm of your own breathing, which seems to synchronize with the slow pulse of the city. The cold travertine under your hands is a reminder of permanence, of things that endure long after the sun has set and the fires have dimmed. The silence is so heavy and comforting that it feels like a physical weight pressing gently against your eyelids. You take one last look at the sleeping giants of Rome, the domes, the pillars, and the long stretches of the aqueducts, before turning back toward the inner sanctum of your home. The fourth watch is nearly over, and as the world prepares for the transition to light, you are ready to sink deeper into the timeless, dark embrace of sleep. The darkness inside the villa is even more profound, scented with the dying embers of the hearth and the lingering aroma of beeswax. Each step you take across the cool mosaic floor is a quiet communion with the past, the tiles smooth and reassuring underfoot. As you settle into your chamber, the distant groan of a supply wagon entering the city gates becomes a rhythmic lullaby, a sign that the world is moving, but you are still, safe, and perfectly at rest.
In the distance, the heavy silence of the night is finally broken by a low wooden groan that seems to rise from the very earth itself. It is the sound of the great supply wagons, the slow-moving caravans that wait outside the pomerium until the sun sets and the law permits them entry. Because wheeled traffic is strictly forbidden during the daylight hours to prevent the city's narrow arteries from choking with congestion, the deep hours of the night belong exclusively to the merchants. You listen as the first of these heavy vehicles begins its ascent, a straining of timber and leather that announces the arrival of the city's daily sustenance. The sound soon settles into a rhythmic metallic clack-clack of iron-rimmed wheels passing over the massive basalt paving stones of the Via Sacra. Each stone was laid with precision centuries ago, and as the wheels strike the uneven edges, the percussion creates a steady, hypnotic cadence that echoes against the marble facades of the temples. It is a slow and deliberate sound, a heartbeat of commerce that pulses through the darkness. You find yourself focusing on the consistency of the noise, a repetitive mechanical song that lulls the mind into a state of calm, predictable observation. These wagons are the heavy carriers of the lifeblood of Rome, laden with the riches of a world that stretches far beyond the horizon. Within their wooden frames sit thousands of enormous terracotta amphorae, their pointed bases nestled in straw to prevent them from shattering. You can almost feel the weight of them, vast quantities of thick golden olive oil from the groves of Hispania, and the pungent salty treasures of the sea. The sheer mass of the cargo gives the sound a deep, resonant quality, a heavy thrumming that vibrates through the air and settles in your chest. Stacked alongside the oil are the heavy sacks of North African grain, the golden wheat that feeds the millions who call this city home. The scent of dry burlap and sun-parched earth begins to drift upward, mixing with the cool river mist. These sacks represent the labor of distant fields, now being hauled through the heart of the empire. The slow, grinding progress of the oxen pulling these loads adds a base layer to the soundscape, a wet, rhythmic treading of hooves and the low, guttural breathing of the beasts of burden as they lean into their yokes. Hidden beneath the canvas covers are crates of dark, sweet wine,
harvested from the volcanic slopes of Vesuvius and the sun-drenched hills of Greece. You imagine the liquid sloshing gently inside the clay vessels, a muffled, fluid counterpoint to the sharp strike of iron on stone. The variety of the cargo creates a sensory tapestry. You can almost taste the richness of the empire in the air. The knowledge that the city is being replenished while you watch provides a profound sense of security, a realization that the needs of tomorrow are already being met while the world is still at rest. The sound is not merely a noise, it is a rolling vibration that hums through the very foundations of the Palatine Hill. From your high vantage point, you feel the tremors through the soles of your feet, a subtle shaking of the travertine balcony that confirms the sheer power of Rome's reach. This vibration is comforting, a reminder of the immense strength of the infrastructure that supports you. It feels like the purr of a great sleeping animal, a machine of stone and wood that never truly stops moving, even when the citizens have retired to their beds. As the wagons move deeper into the valley of the Forum, their sounds are amplified by the surrounding marble walls. The echoes bounce between the Basilica Julia and the Temple of Castor and Pollux, creating a surround sound experience of shifting textures. You hear the occasional crack of a driver's whip, not a sharp sound of violence, but a soft flicking signal to the lead ox to stay the course. The drivers themselves are silent, respecting the hush of the city, moving like shadows through a world of gray and silver. The persistence of the clacking wheels begins to act as a meditative focal point for your wandering thoughts. Your mind hitches a ride on the slow rotation of the iron rims, turning over and over in a peaceful circular motion. The repetitive nature of the transit strips away the complexities of your own life, leaving only the simple reality of motion and weight. There is a strange ancient music in the friction of the journey, a symphony of wood, iron, stone, and effort that has played out in exactly this way for hundreds of years. Gradually, the lead wagons move further into the distance, their clatter softening into a dull, distant thudding. New wagons take their place, ensuring that the sound never truly breaks, only shifts in intensity and location. This continuity is a hallmark of the eternal city, a never-ending cycle of arrival and distribution. The night air, though still cool, now feels charged with the quiet energy of the coming day, yet the pace remains slow enough that it does not disturb your growing sense of lethargy. You lean back against the villa wall, the vibration of the carts still faintly present in the stone behind your shoulders. The rhythmic groan of the axles becomes a lullaby, a heavy and grounded sound that pulls at your eyelids. The city is being fed, the storehouses are being filled, and the great gears of the empire are turning with a slow, irresistible force. You are a witness to the invisible work of the night, and as the sounds of the Via Sacra continue to hum in the background, you feel yourself sinking deeper into a state of profound, unshakable relaxation.
A pale, translucent lavender begins to bleed into the eastern sky over the distant Alban hills, a subtle fracture in the solid wall of night. This color is not yet light, but rather a thinning of the darkness, a soft infusion of violet that suggests the world is slowly regaining its dimension. The silhouette of the mountains, once indistinguishable from the heavens, now begins to emerge as a jagged indigo spine against the softening horizon. You watch as this delicate hue spreads like ink in clear water, washing over the peaks and slowly descending toward the sleeping plains of Latium. The stars, which have served as the steadfast guides for Roman sailors navigating the Tyrrhenian Sea and soldiers marching across the northern frontiers, begin to dim one by one. The celestial canopy,
once vibrant with the silver fire of 1,000 constellations, seems to recede into the deepening distance. The brightest points of light, the eyes of the gods, as some might call them, flicker with a final quiet intensity before being swallowed by the rising tide of morning. There is a profound sense of transition in this fading, a gentle letting go of the night's mysteries to make way for the clarity of the sun. As the lavender deepens, the air around you begins to shift, losing the biting edge of the fourth watch. It is a subtle change, a barely perceptible warming that speaks to the movement of the earth. You feel the stirrings of a soft breeze, one that carries the promise of heat while still retaining the freshness of the dew. This air movement feels like a soft sigh from the city itself, a long-held breath finally being released as the safety of the dawn approaches. The first hint of true light finally catches the mist rising from the valley floor below. The fog, which had sat heavy and gray over the Forum and the banks of the Tiber, suddenly glows with an ethereal, milky radiance. It looks like a slow-moving river of silver flowing through the gaps between the temples and the arches. The way the light interacts with the moisture creates a soft, diffused glow that blurs the lines of the stone, making the massive structures appear as if they are floating in a sea of clouds. You watch with a calm, focused intensity as the deep purples of the sky begin to transform, yielding to a soft, dusty rose. This transition is slow and deliberate, a masterwork of natural alchemy that turns the cold colors of sleep into the warm tones of life. The rose-colored light begins to reflect off the highest points of the city, the white marble of the Temple of Apollo and the crests of the Palatine villas, giving the stone a flush of warmth that looks almost like a heartbeat. The city beneath you remains hushed, caught in that fragile, sacred moment between the lingering dreams of the night and the inevitable duties of the morning. It is an interval of pure potentiality, where the weight of the day's labor has not yet settled upon the shoulders of the populace. In this stillness, the grand architecture of Rome seems to exist for its own sake, free from the noise of politics, the clamor of the markets, and the dust of the streets. This silence is profound and heavy, a blanket of peace that covers the millions of lives resting within the insulae and the domus. You imagine the countless sleepers in the shadows below, their breaths rising and falling in unison with the slow pulse of the awakening earth. There is a collective vulnerability in this moment, a shared surrender to the quiet beauty of the dawn that transcends status and wealth. For this brief window of time, the emperor and the slave are both subjects of the same rising light. Your gaze lingers on the horizon, where the dusty rose is now beginning to be shot through with thin veins or pale gold. The Alban hills are now fully defined, their slopes covered in the dark green of olive groves and the silver gray of limestone, all softened by the lingering atmospheric haze. The world feels immense and yet deeply intimate, as if you were the only witness to this grand celestial performance. The scale of the empire is reflected in the vastness of the sky, yet the peace you feel is entirely personal. The transition from lavender to rose brings a sense of profound mental clarity. The wandering thoughts and anxieties of the night dissolve in the face of such certain, rhythmic beauty. You find yourself leaning into the silence, breathing in the scent of damp earth and awakening flora. The world is renewing itself as it has for thousands of years, and you are being invited to participate in that renewal simply by observing it. The patience of the stone around you seems to seep into your spirit, anchoring you in the present. Finally, the sky begins to brighten into a clear, luminous pearl, signaling that the sun is just below the rim of the world. The stars are gone now, replaced by the expectant glow of a new Roman day. You stand still, suspended in the perfection of the moment, watching as the shadows of the columns finally begin to shorten and sharpen. The night has passed, the light has returned, and the eternal city stands ready to meet the morning.
The first ray of sunlight finally crests the sharp ridge of the horizon, piercing through the lingering haze of the Alban Hills with the precision of a celestial spear. It travels across the vastness of the Roman Campagna, silent and swift, until it finds its first terrestrial anchor, the magnificent roof of the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. Perched atop the rugged heights of the Capitoline Hill, the temple stands as the religious heart of the empire, and in this precise moment it becomes a beacon for the entire world. The transition from the soft rose of pre-dawn to the sharp clarity of the sun is a sudden, breathtaking shift that signals the definitive end of the night's reign. As the light touches the gilded bronze tiles of the temple's roof, they ignite with a sudden, brilliant flash of gold that seems to rival the sun itself. This is not merely a reflection, it is a transformation of metal into pure radiance. The glow is so intense that it casts a shimmering amber halo into the surrounding air, catching the last remnants of the morning mist and turning them into floating grains of light. From your vantage point on the Palatine, the sight is hypnotic, a reminder of the power and favor the Romans believe their patron god bestows upon the city. This concentrated explosion of light does not stay confined to the heights. It spills over the edges of the Capitoline and begins to reflect across the entire expanse of the Forum Romanum below. Like a pebble dropped into a still pond, the radiance ripples outward, striking the pediments of lesser temples and the bronze wings of victory statues. The valley, which only moments ago was a basin of deep indigo and charcoal, is suddenly flooded with a warm, liquid light that reveals the intricate textures of the city's heart. You watch as this golden light begins to trickle down the massive marble columns of the surrounding basilicas and shrines. It moves like a slow-moving fluid, coating the fluted surfaces of the stone in a warm, glowing cream. The cold, bluish tint that the marble had held throughout the night is erased, replaced by a hue so rich and soft it looks almost edible. Each column becomes a pillar of warmth, standing tall against the receding shadows, their Corinthian capitals catching the light in their carved acanthus leaves, creating a complex play of gold and amber. The shadows in the valley below begin their inevitable retreat, pulling back from the paved plazas like a tide returning to the sea. You can see the darkness shrinking away from the base of the rostra and the curia, exposing the vast, empty expanses of the forum. This withdrawal is not hurried. It is a majestic and orderly recession that slowly unveils the grand architecture of the empire, piece by piece. As the shadows vanish, the city seems to expand, gaining depth and height that the darkness had obscured. The transition from dark to light is profoundly slow, deliberate, and certain. There is no doubt in this movement. It is a cosmic inevitability that has repeated since the founding of the city and will continue long after. You find a deep sense of peace in this certainty. The sun always finds the temple, the shadows always retreat, and the day always returns. The reliability of this rhythm provides a psychological foundation of safety, a feeling that the universe is in its proper order and that you are exactly where you are meant to be. As the sun rises higher, the light begins to reach the smaller, more intimate details of the forum. It catches the glint of brass on the doors of the Temple of Janus and illuminates the ancient inscriptions carved into the stone of the milestones. The warmth of the light is now a physical presence, a gentle touch against the skin that banishes the last of the morning's chill. You breathe in the air, which now smells of sun-warmed stone and the faint dusty scent of the city's ancient foundations being heated by the sun. The white stone of the surrounding villas and government buildings is now so bright it almost hums with energy.
The contrast between the brilliant, sun-drenched surfaces and the remaining pockets of deep shade in the narrow alleyways creates a visual masterpiece of light and shadow. You realize that this is the hour when Rome looks its most eternal, unburdened by the crowds, the noise, or the dust, appearing only as a collection of perfect geometric shapes carved from the mountains and kissed by the sun. Your mind settles into a state of quiet contemplation as you witness this unveiling. The complexity of the city's history and its future is simplified into this single, pure moment of illumination. The grandeur of the architecture is not meant to intimidate, but to provide a sense of permanence and continuity. You are part of this continuity, a living breath within a city of stone that has seen 1,000 such dawns and will see 1,000 more. As the sun fully clears the horizon, the entire landscape is bathed in a consistent golden clarity. The fourth watch is truly over, and the world is now fully awake, though the silence still lingers for a few more precious minutes. You stand on your balcony, bathed in the same glowing cream light as the marble columns, feeling a profound sense of readiness and calm. The light has returned, the shadows have gone, and for this moment, all is right within the walls of the eternal city.
As you descend from the heights of the Palatine, leaving the marble balconies behind, the air undergoes a profound and sensory transformation. The ethereal, damp mist of the Tiber, which had clung to your skin like a cold veil, begins to evaporate in the face of a new and grounding heat. It is replaced by a thick, fragrant atmosphere that feels more intimate and human, the warm, yeasty aroma of the neighborhood pistrinum. This scent is the first true herald of the waking city, rising from the bakeries tucked into the lower streets like a welcoming breath. The fragrance is dominated by the sharp, pleasant tang of wood smoke rising from the massive brick ovens. You can almost see the glowing embers of olive wood and oak crackling within the deep recesses of the masonry. The smoke is not acrid, but rather a soft seasoning element that weaves through the narrow alleys, carrying with it the promise of warmth and sustenance. It hangs in the still morning air, a silver-grayed ghost of industry that signals the end of the night's stillness and the beginning of the day's work. At the heart of this olfactory tapestry is the unmistakable earthy scent of Panis quadratus. These are the heavy, round loaves of Roman sourdough, their crusts dusted with flour and their interiors dense and nourishing. As the bakers pull the loaves from the heat with long wooden peels, a cloud of steam escapes, carrying the concentrated essence of fermented grain and sun-baked fields. It is a smell that suggests density and weight, a fundamental food that has anchored the Roman diet for centuries. The aroma is deeply comforting and undeniably ancient, striking a chord within you that feels older than the stones of the city themselves. It is a reminder of the simple, enduring cycles of life that persist regardless of who sits on the throne or what wars are being fought on the frontiers. This smell, the combination of grain, fire, and water, represents a basic contract with the earth, a daily miracle of transformation that brings peace to the mind and satisfaction to the body. As you walk past the open doors of the bakery, you catch a glimpse of the flour-dusted workers moving in the golden glow of the ovens. Their motions are rhythmic and practiced, a dance of kneading and shaping that has been performed in exactly this way for generations. The heat from the ovens spills out into the street, brushing against your face like a warm hand, banishing the last lingering chill of the fourth watch. You feel a sense of belonging in this sensory landscape, a quiet participant in the city's morning ritual. A few early workers begin to move past you on the paving stones, their presence as subtle as the fading stars.
These are the artisans, the water carriers, and the laborers whose lives are dictated by the rising sun. Their footsteps are soft and deliberate, muffled by the wool of their tunics or the thin leather of their sandals. There is no frantic rush yet. The city is still shaking off the weight of sleep, and everyone seems to move with a shared, unspoken grace. You notice that their voices are kept low, reduced to melodic whispers that respect the lingering sanctity of the morning. A greeting is exchanged with a nod. A quiet instruction is given at a shop door. This hushed communication creates a sense of communal intimacy, as if the entire neighborhood is part of a secret that the rest of the world has yet to discover. The harsh, shouting roam of the midday sun is still hours away, leaving this time for a more gentle and reflective human connection. The stones beneath your feet, though hard and ancient, seem to vibrate with the low-frequency hum of this early activity. You pass a small shrine on a corner where a single oil lamp flickers, its light competing with the strengthening sun. The smell of the bread follows you, a persistent and friendly companion that makes the grand architecture of the Forum feel less like a monument and more like a home. The city is no longer a collection of cold marble, but a living, breathing organism fueled by the warmth of the oven. Your mind settles into a state of deep, rhythmic calm as you navigate these lower streets. The complexity of the empire's politics and the vastness of its borders seem distant and unimportant compared to the immediate, visceral reality of the Pistrinum. You find yourself focusing on the simplicity of the moment, the feel of the air, the scent of the sourdough, and the quiet dignity of the early workers. It is a meditative experience, a slow walk through the very essence of human survival and comfort. By the time you reach the edge of the market district, you feel completely enveloped in the city's morning embrace. The yeasty scent of the bread has acted as a bridge between the dreams of the night and the reality of the day. You are grounded, relaxed, and deeply present. The world is waking up, but it is doing so with a kindness and a steady pace that invites you to continue your journey in a state of profound, unshakable peace.
As the morning light strengthens, the character of the city's silence shifts, replaced by a new and distinct sound, the soft, pervasive rustle of wool. One by one, the heavy oak doors of the Domus and the narrow entries of the insulae swing open, and the citizens of Rome emerge into the day. They come dressed in the formal dignity of their station, draped in the expansive, cream-colored folds of the toga. This is not the light, airy fabric of the East, but a substantial, traditional wool that carries the weight of history in every thread. You watch as the men adjust the sinus, the deep pocket of draped fabric, ensuring that every fold falls with the calculated grace required of a Roman. The fabric itself is thick and tactile, providing a physical sense of importance and gravitas to those who wear it. This is the garment of the law, the Senate, and the citizen, and its weight is a constant reminder of one's place in the eternal order of the city. As you observe the crowds beginning to gather, you can almost feel the warmth of the wool against the skin and the way it restricts hurried movement, forcing a slower, more deliberate pace. There is no room for frantic running in a toga. To wear it is to commit to a walk of measured composure, a rhythmic progression that honors the gravity of the Roman identity. As these figures move together, a singular sound begins to dominate the narrow streets, a rhythmic, hypnotic shh of wool brushing against the ancient stone. The heavy hems of the togas, often weighted to ensure they hang correctly, sweep across the basalt paving stones with every step. It is a soft, friction-filled sound, like the breaking of tiny waves on a distant shore.
This collective whisper of fabric creates an ambient layer of white noise that masks the sharper sounds of the city, wrapping the morning in a cocoon of textured sound that is both calming and constant. The visual impact of this movement is nothing short of breathtaking. From a slight elevation, the sight of 1,000 white togas flowing through the winding, sun-streaked streets looks like a slow-moving river of salt. The cream-colored wool catches the morning sun, reflecting a soft, diffused light that fills the narrow corridors of the city with a gentle brilliance. This river of white does not rush. It meanders with a purposeful fluidity, winding around the bases of the great temples and pooling in the open squares, a human tide that marks the beginning of the city's official life. As the river flows toward the heart of the city, the Forum, you notice the subtle variations in the sea of white. Some togas are the brilliant bleached white of the candidatus, while others bear the broad, regal purple stripe of the senatorial class, known as the toga praetexta. These streaks of Tyrian purple look like veins of rich color flowing through the salt white mass, adding a layer of visual complexity to the scene. Despite these differences in rank, the shared uniform of the wool creates a powerful sense of unity and continuity, a visual representation of the Pax Romana in its most domestic and peaceful form. The smell of the crowd is surprisingly clean, a mixture of the natural lanolin scent of raw wool and the faint herbal aroma of the laundry fires where the garments were cleaned with fuller's earth. It is an earthy, honest scent that pairs perfectly with the tactile weight of the clothing. You find your own pace slowing to match the collective rhythm of the flow. There is a strange meditative quality to being part of this mass. The individual disappears into the texture of the crowd, becoming a single drop in a vast ivory-colored sea. The way the light plays upon the folds of the fabric is a study in highlight and shadow. Each movement of a citizen creates a new arrangement of drapes, catching the sun on the ridges of the wool and casting deep, soft shadows in the valleys of the cloth. The architecture of the city, the rigid, fluted columns, and the sharp angles of the pediments is softened by this moving landscape of fabric. It is as if the city itself has been upholstered in white, making the hard stone environment feel suddenly more approachable and serene. You notice how the citizens interact within this flow. A hand is raised in a slow, graceful greeting. A head bows slightly in respect to a passing elder. These small gestures are amplified by the way the wool moves with the body, adding a sense of theater to every social exchange. The shh of the hems continues unabated, a steady metronome that keeps time for the city's social choreography. The sound is so consistent that it begins to fade into the background of your consciousness, a comforting hum that signals the world is functioning exactly as it should. In the daps between the buildings, where the sun hits the street directly, the white of the togas becomes almost blindingly bright, creating a stark contrast with the deep, cool shadows of the porticos. You watch as a group of citizens enters a patch of light and then disappears back into the shade, their forms flickering like ghosts in the morning air. This constant transition from light to dark, accompanied by the untireless rustle of the wool, creates a dreamlike atmosphere that pulls you further away from the stresses of the modern world and deeper into the timeless heart of the empire. By the time the head of this white river reaches the edges of the Forum, the city feels fully inhabited but remarkably peaceful. The collective movement has a calming centripetal force, drawing everyone toward the center of the world with a shared, silent purpose. You stand for a moment and simply listen to the sea of wool, letting the rhythmic sound of the brushing hems lull your mind into a state of total relaxation. The day has begun, the river is flowing, and you are safely adrift in the soft, cream-colored embrace of Rome. You step fully into the Roman Forum, and for a moment the breath catches in your chest as the sheer vertical scale of the empire reveals itself. This is the umbilicus urbis, the navel of the city, and the psychological center of the known world. Here, the narrow, winding alleys of the residential districts give way to a vast, open expanse governed by geometry and grandeur. You find yourself standing at the base of monuments so immense they seem to have been carved by the hands of giants rather than men. The transition from the crowded streets to this open plaza is like stepping from a stream into a vast, still lake of marble and light. Massive columns of fluted marble rise toward the sky like a petrified forest, their vertical lines drawing your gaze upward into the brilliant blue of the Italian morning. These are not merely supports for roofs, they are declarations of order and permanence. The stone is cool and white, yet it glows with an inner light where the sun strikes the fluting. You reach out and touch the base of a pillar, feeling the micro-textures of the grain, the faint crystalline shimmer of the rock that was quarried in distant Carrara, or the mountains of Greece and hauled here to serve as the bones of the state. High above, these pillars are topped with intricate Corinthian capitals, where the stone has been coaxed into the delicate curling shapes of acanthus leaves. It is a marvel of human artistry to see such heavy, stubborn material transformed into something that looks as light as foliage. You watch as the sunlight catches the edges of these stone leaves, creating a crown of golden light atop each column. The craftsmanship is so precise that even from the ground, hundreds of feet below, you can see the veins in the leaves and the curls of the volutes, a testament to an attention to detail that borders on the divine. Standing in the shadow of these giants, you feel remarkably small, yet this smallness does not bring a sense of insignificance. Instead, you feel profoundly protected, as if you have entered a sacred grove where no harm can reach you. The forest of stone creates a canopy of security, a structural shield that has weathered centuries of storms and political upheavals. The sheer mass of the surrounding basilicas, the Giulia and the Aemilia, encloses the space in a way that feels like a monumental embrace, buffering you from the chaos of the outside world. The sunlight is now bright and clear, having burned away the last of the morning mists, and it begins to play across the bronze statues of gods and emperors that line the plazas. These figures stand on high pedestals, their metal skin polished to a mirror shine that reflects the movements of the crowd below. When the sun hits a bronze breastplate or a laurel wreath, it sends a localized flash of warmth through the air. You watch the way the light defines the muscles of a bronze Jupiter or the stoic features of a deified Caesar, turning the static metal into something that feels vibrantly, eternally alive. Everything in the Forum feels solid, intentional, and profoundly heavy. There is no wood here, no temporary thatch or fragile brick. Everything is made of travertine, marble, and tuff. The very ground you stand on is composed of massive paving stones, fitted together so tightly that not a blade of grass can find purchase. This architectural density gives you a sense of unshakable grounding. You are standing on the bedrock of a civilization that believes with every fiber of its being that it has been built to last for 10,000 years. The air here is different than in the rest of the city. It tastes of sun-warmed mineral and the faint metallic tang of the bronze. Because the Forum is a basin between the hills, it traps the warmth of the sun, creating a microclimate of stillness. You find a quiet spot near the Miliarium Aureum, the golden milestone, and simply breathe. The hum of the city continues around you, but it is dampened by the sheer volume of the stone. The buildings act as acoustic baffles, turning the noise of commerce into a soft, indistinct murmur that sounds like the wind in the trees. You observe the way the light moves across the pediments of the temples. As the sun climbs, the shadows of the statues stretch and rotate across the pavement like the hands of a massive sundial. This slow, predictable movement of shadow across stone reinforces the feeling of timelessness. In the Forum, time does not move in minutes or hours, but in the slow shift of light across marble. It is a pace that invites the mind to let go of its frantic modern rhythms and syncopated anxieties, instead adopting the patient pulse of the monuments. The visual harmony of the space is a balm for the eyes. The repetition of the columns, the symmetry of the arches, and the consistent height of the porticos create a sense of visual logic that is deeply satisfying. Your eyes follow the line of the Via Sacra as it climbs toward the Temple of Jupiter, a path of white and gold that leads toward the heavens. There is a sense of destiny in the architecture, a feeling that this place was dreamed into existence to serve as the eternal stage for the human drama. As you stand in the center of the plaza, you feel a deep physical relaxation spread through your limbs. The weight of the stone around you seems to absorb your own burdens, leaving you light and unencumbered. You are a guest in the house of history, and the house is strong, silent, and welcoming. The world may change beyond the walls, but here, in the heart of the Forum, the sun will always strike the marble, the bronze will always gleam, and the stone will always remain, holding the silence of the ages in its cool white grip.
At the rostra, the elevated platform adorned with the bronze prows of captured ships, a small crowd has begun to crystallize in the morning light. They gather not with the frantic energy of a mob, but with a disciplined curiosity, drawn by the presence of a public herald about to deliver a morning proclamation. You find a place at the edge of the assembly, leaning against a cool plinth. The air here is charged with a quiet expectancy, a collective pausing of the morning's momentum to receive the news of the state. The sound of the Latin language soon fills the open air, and even before the meaning of the words reaches your mind, the sheer texture of the speech captivates your senses. It is a language of profound structural weight, characterized by rolling, resonant R's that seem to vibrate in the chest, and sharp percussive consonants that provide a clear rhythmic boundary to every thought. Unlike the fragmented sounds of the modern world, this Latin feels architectural, built with the same precision and balance as the marble temples that surround the speaker. The orator's voice is trained in the schools of rhetoric, possessing a melodic and rhythmic quality that transcends mere communication. It rises and falls in long, graceful arcs, mimicking the swell and retreat of the Mediterranean tide. There is a specific musicality to the way the sentences are constructed, a cadence known as the cursus that ensures every proclamation ends with a satisfying harmonic resolution. As you listen, you feel the rise of the pitch during the argument and the deep resonant drop during the conclusion, a vocal ebb and flow that is deeply soothing to the ear. You find that you do not need to understand the nuances of the vocabulary to feel the restorative power of the speech. The voice acts as a gentle ambient drone, a human instrument that harmonizes with the distant clatter of the city. The repetition of certain vowel sounds, the long open ahs, and the deep resonant ohs creates a sonorous vibration that seems to smooth out the edges of your thoughts. It is a vocal tapestry woven from authority and tradition, providing a sense of cultural continuity that lulls the spirit into a state of trust. Against the backdrop of the city's waking hum, the speech serves as a focal point for your wandering attention. While the distant markets begin to murmur and the fountains splash nearby, the orator's voice provides a steady, unwavering line of sound. It is a civilized noise,
a manifestation of the Roman belief in the power of the word to bring order to chaos. You let the syllables wash over you like cool water, not grasping at them, but simply allowing their rhythmic structure to dictate the pace of your breathing. The crowd around you remains largely silent, their occasional murmurs of assent adding a soft, percussive layer to the performance. You watch the way the speaker uses his hands, the heavy wool of his toga sleeve emphasizing his gestures. Each movement is synchronized with the flow of the language, making the proclamation a full-bodied experience of sight and sound. This harmony between the man, his message, and the environment reinforces the feeling that you are witnessing a ritual as old as the hills themselves. As the sun climbs higher, the orator's shadow stretches across the stone of the forum, moving in time with his delivery. The light catches the moisture in his throat, making his voice sound rich and textured, like honey poured over stone. You find yourself drifting into a light trance, the specific meanings of the laws or news being read falling away until only the pure rhythmic beauty of the human voice remains. It is a meditative sound, a steady anchor in the vast sea of the Roman morning. The pauses in the speech are just as important as the words themselves. In the brief silences between sentences, you hear the distant ring of a blacksmith's hammer or the cry of a circling hawk high above the Palatine. These natural breaks allow the resonance of the Latin to hang in the air for a moment, echoing softly off the marble facades of the nearby basilicas. The silence and the sound work together, creating a breathing space for your mind to settle and expand. There is a sense of deep security in hearing the voice of the city at work. The proclamation is a sign that the laws are being upheld, that the administration of the empire is proceeding with its usual tireless efficiency. This structural stability translates into a personal sense of peace. When the state speaks with such measured, rhythmic authority, the individual is free to let go of their own vigil. You lean deeper into the stone, your eyes half closed, mesmerized by the rise and fall of the orator's ancient song. As the proclamation draws to a close, the speaker's voice drops to a low, sonorous frequency, signaling the finality of the message. The last few syllables are drawn out, vibrating in the still morning air, before finally dissolving into the ambient noise of the forum. The crowd begins to disperse with the same quiet dignity with which they arrived, leaving you in a state of profound linguistic calm. The air feels clearer, the world feels more orderly, and the steady, rhythmic ghost of the Latin tongue continues to echo in your mind like a distant, fading lullaby.
Leaving the rhythmic pulse of the rostra behind, your journey leads toward a structure of singular, quiet power, the Temple of Vesta. Unlike the soaring, rectangular basilicas that dominate the horizon, this temple is circular, a perfect stone ring modeled after the ancient, humble huts of Rome's earliest ancestors. Its shape is a symbol of the hearth and the home, a gentle curve in a world of sharp angles. As you approach, the very air seems to thicken and slow, as if the space around the temple is held in a different, more sacred dimension of time. The atmosphere here is remarkably still, protected from the morning breeze by the surrounding hills. It carries a heavy, comforting scent that is unique to this spot, a blend of slow-burning oak logs and the delicate, floral sweetness of high-grade incense. The oak provides a deep, resinous undertone, a smell of ancient forests being transformed into light, while the incense drifts in thin, bluish ribbons that swirl lazily around the white marble columns. It is a scent that feels both domestic and divine, grounding you in the reality of the earth while pointing towards something eternal. Through the heavy, open bronze doors, your eyes are drawn to the inner sanctum, the cella, where the sacred fire of Rome is kept. There is no statue of the goddess here. She is present only in the low, amber flicker of the flame itself.
This fire is the soul of the city, a living light that must never be allowed to extinguish. You watch the way the light play across the interior walls, a warm and golden pulse that defies the encroaching brightness of the sun outside. The flame is steady and confident, a flickering heart that has beat for centuries without fail. You catch a glimpse of the Vestal Virgins as they move within the shadows of the portico. They move with a ghostly, practiced silence, their feet making no sound on the polished floor. Draped in white wool and wearing the infula, the sacred headbands of their office, their veils catch the morning light as they pass between the columns, turning them into shimmering figures of ivory. Their presence is one of absolute focus. They are the guardians of the flame, and their quiet movements reflect a life lived in total harmony with the ritual of the fire. The sound of the temple is perhaps the most soothing part of your visit. Amidst the grand, silent stones, you hear the fire crackling softly, a tiny, intimate, and domestic sound. It is the noise of a family kitchen, of a private home, yet here it is elevated to the status of a state treasure. This small pop and hiss of the wood stands in contrast to the massive, silent weight of the marble temples surrounding it. It is a reminder that the great empire is built upon the simple, steady heat of the communal hearth. As you stand near the entrance, you feel the gentle warmth of the fire reaching out to you. It is a soft heat, not the scorching glare of the sun, but a nurtured, controlled warmth that invites you to relax your shoulders and soften your gaze. You find yourself matching your breathing to the slow flicker of the light. The fire does not rush. It consumes its fuel with a patient, rhythmic grace. Watching it, you feel the flickering anxieties of your own mind begin to settle, becoming as steady and low as the coals on the altar. The shadows created by the circular colonnade move with a different geometry than the rest of the forum. They curve around the base of the temple, creating a soft, shaded perimeter that feels like a protective barrier. You lean against a nearby pillar, the stone cool against your back, while your front is warmed by the scent and spirit of the fire. It is a perfect balance of elements, stone and flame, shadow and light, that creates a profound sense of psychological equilibrium. There is a deep, unspoken security in the presence of the fire. To a Roman, the health of this flame is the health of the world. As long as it burns, the city stands. As you observe its steady glow, that cultural certainty translates into a personal feeling of safety. You are in the heart of the heart, the most protected and stable point in the entire empire. The fire is a promise that the night will always be kept at bay, and that the continuity of life is guaranteed. The Vestals occasionally tend to the hearth, their shadows stretching long across the floor as they add a fresh branch of oak. You watch the sparks dance briefly in the gloom of the interior before disappearing into the smoke. Each movement is a slow-motion prayer, a deliberate act of care that reinforces the feeling of being in a space where nothing is hurried and every second is sacred. The world outside may be waking to commerce and noise, but here the only task is to remain, to breathe, and to burn. As you eventually move away from the circular temple, the scent of the oak smoke clings to your clothes, a fragrant souvenir of the stillness. The tiny domestic crackle of the flame remains in your ears, a rhythmic pulse that counters the grand scale of the surrounding architecture. You feel centered and quieted, as if you have touched the very source of the city's life and found it to be warm, steady, and infinitely peaceful. The fire continues its eternal dance behind you, a golden
The sun
beacon
has
of
climbed
rest
higher
in a
now,
world of
its heat
stone.
beginning to press down upon the open plazas with a golden, insistent weight. Seeking refuge, you turn toward the massive facade of the Basilica Julia. As you step across the threshold, the world undergoes an immediate and profound change. The glare of the morning sun is traded for a soft, diffused dimness, and the dry heat of the forum is replaced by a refreshing, cavernous chill. It is as if the very air has been filtered through layers of ancient stone, arriving at your skin with a silky, subterranean coolness that invites an immediate, deep exhale. The interior of the basilica is staggeringly vast, a forest of internal columns that support a ceiling so high it seems to hold its own weather. This immense volume of space acts as an acoustic sponge, swallowing the clatter of the streets and the murmurs of the crowd until they are nothing more than a faint oceanic hum. Within these walls, the frantic energy of the day is neutralized. Every sound, the scuff of a sandal, the rustle of a toga, is softened and stretched, echoing gently before fading into the still, upper reaches of the nave. Your eyes are drawn downward to the floor, which is a masterpiece of imperial reach and geological beauty. The pavement is a sprawling sea of colored marbles, a stone map of the Roman world. You see the deep, buttery yellows of giallo antico brought from the quarries of Numidia, the speckled royal reds of porphyry from the eastern deserts of Egypt, and the swirling forest greens of Carystian marble from the Greek islands. These stones, polished by a century of footsteps, possess a soft luster that makes the floor look like the surface of a still, multicolored pond. You find a quiet spot to rest, leaning your back against a massive fluted pillar of white Carrara marble. The stone is incredibly solid, a cold and unyielding presence that seems to absorb the last remnants of tension from your spine. From this vantage point, you observe the way the light enters through the high clerestory windows. It does not flood the room. Instead, it falls in long, slow rectangles that stretch across the variegated floor. These beams of light are thick with microscopic motes of dust, dancing in slow-motion ballets within the shafts of brilliance. The air inside the basilica is uniquely still, a stagnant but clean atmosphere that feels protected from the winds of the outside world. It carries a faint, evocative scent, the dry, papery tang of old parchment and the mineral smell of ancient dust. It is the aroma of bureaucracy and history, of 1,000 legal scrolls and centuries of footfalls. This scent is not unpleasant. It is the smell of permanence, of a place where the passage of time is recorded in ink and stone rather than in the fleeting moments of a single life. You watch as a long rectangle of light slowly traverses a patch of Numidian yellow. The movement is so gradual it is almost imperceptible, a silent clock measuring the progress of the Roman afternoon. As the light moves, it reveals the intricate veins and fossils trapped within the stone, highlighting colors that were hidden in the shadows moments before. This slow visual progression is hypnotic, drawing your focus away from your own thoughts and into the quiet, rhythmic life of the building itself. In the distance, across the vast hall, you see a group of men gathered in a low-voiced circle, perhaps discussing a point of law or a matter of trade. Their presence is reduced to a soft, rhythmic murmuring that never breaks the prevailing silence. The scale of the basilica makes human concerns seem small and manageable. Here, under the weight of such massive architecture, the problems of the individual are subsumed by the grandeur of the state, providing a strange but potent sense of relief. A gentle draft occasionally wanders through the colonnades, carrying the faint, sweet scent of incense from the nearby temples. It ripples the edges of your clothing and then vanishes, leaving the air even more still than before. You feel as though you are sitting in the heart of a great stone lung, one that breathes with a frequency so slow that a single inhale lasts for hours. This rhythm is infectious, and you find your own pulse slowing to match the deliberate pace of the basilica. The play of light and shadow on the ceiling far above creates a shifting canopy of grays and ambers. The intricate carvings of the rafters are lost in the gloom, appearing only as textured patterns that suggest a world of hidden detail. You let your head rest back against the pillar,
your eyes half closing as you track the slow crawl of the golden rectangles across the floor. The world outside, with its sun and its noise, feels like a distant memory, a separate life that you have left behind for the sanctuary of the stone. As you linger in this cool marble forest, you feel a profound sense of mental expansion. The vastness of the space encourages your mind to stretch out, to fill the voids between the columns with peaceful, unhurried thoughts. You are safe, you are cool, and you are surrounded by the enduring colors of a dozen distant lands. The Basilica Julia is a temple of quietude, and as the light continues its patient journey across the Egyptian red and the Greek green, you sink deeper into a state of total, unshakable tranquility.
By noon, the sun has ascended to its absolute zenith, hanging directly overhead like a polished brass shield. The shadows, which had been long and stretching only hours ago, now shrink into tight, dark pools beneath the feet of statues and the bases of columns. The verticality of the city is emphasized as the sun's rays strike the flat surfaces of the Forum Square with a relentless, perpendicular force. The stone of the city, the vast expanses of travertine, the marble steps of the temples, and the basalt paving of the streets begins to absorb this energy, radiating a gentle, dry heat that creates a soft shimmer in the air just above the ground. The sky above has deepened into an intense, saturated Italian blue, a color so vivid and pure that it seems to vibrate against the white edges of the monuments. There isn't a single cloud to offer relief, only a limitless expanse of azure that draws the heat upward. Looking up, the contrast between the brilliant sky and the stark, sun-bleached marble of the temple pediments is almost blinding, creating a visual sharpness that defines the high Roman noon. The atmosphere feels heavy with light, a golden pressure that encourages the world to be still. Responding to this celestial cue, the city begins to undergo a profound transformation. The frantic energy of the morning, the shouting of the orators, the clatter of the carts, and the bustle of the legal courts slowly dissolves into the meridiatio, the sacred midday rest. It is as if a collective sigh passes through the streets. This is not a cessation of life, but a shift in its rhythm, a purposeful slowing of the pulse that recognizes the power of the sun. The city does not stop, but it certainly settles, exhaling the tension of the morning's labors. You see a stray ginger cat, the unofficial guardian of the Forum, stretching out with languid grace on a sun-warmed marble pedestal. It extends its paws, claws kneading the warm stone, and settles its belly against the radiating heat, its eyes narrowing into thin slits of golden contentment. The cat's stillness is infectious, a small but perfect symbol of the city's new mood. Nearby, the lizards that live in the cracks of the ancient walls emerge to bask, their green scales glinting like jewels against the dusty gray of the stone. In the market stalls that line the edges of the plaza, the merchants move with slow, deliberate economy. They reach for the ropes of their colorful striped awnings, fabrics dyed in ochre, terracotta, and deep saffron, and pull them further out over their displays of fruit, textiles, and spices. These awnings create islands of sanctuary, casting vibrant, warm-hued shadows over the goods. The sound of the heavy canvas snapping tight in a faint breeze is the only noise in a street that was, an hour ago, filled with the loud bargaining of hundreds. The world now becomes a masterclass in the study of light and deep, cooling shade. The transition between the two is sharp and absolute. To step from the sun-drenched center of the plaza into the shadow of a portico is to feel an immediate drop in temperature, a physical relief that washes over the skin like cool water. These pockets of shade become the city's true cathedrals during the meridiatio,
filled with people sitting on steps or leaning against walls, their eyes closed, their breathing steady and slow. In this midday hush, you find yourself noticing the smaller, quieter sounds that the morning's clamor had obscured. You hear the rhythmic, dry buzz of the cicadas in the distant trees of the Palatine, a sound that seems to rise and fall with the intensity of the heat. You hear the soft, occasional splash of a fountain and the cooing of pigeons nesting in the eaves of the Basilicate Aemilia. These are the sounds of the city at rest, a low-frequency soundtrack that hums beneath the silence, reinforcing the feeling of a world in repose. The air itself feels different. It is dry and still, carrying the scent of parched earth, warm stone, and the faint, sweet aroma of sun-ripened grapes from a nearby stall. There is no dust rising from the streets now, as the feet that kick it up have found places of rest. You lean your head back against a cool, shaded pillar and breathe in the stillness. The atmosphere is thick with a sense of nowness, a suspension of time where the past and future are forgotten in the overwhelming presence of the midday heat. You observe the way the light interacts with the water in a nearby basin. The sun strikes the surface, sending dancing reflections of gold up onto the underside of a shaded marble archway. These liquid ripples of light move in a slow, hypnotic pattern, a silent dance that mirrors the internal peace you are beginning to feel. Your mind, once busy with the sights and sounds of the bustling forum, now settles into a state of quiet observation, content to simply watch the light and shadow play their eternal game. By the time the sun begins its very slight descent from the peak of the sky, you feel completely harmonized with the rhythm of the meridiatio. The weight of the sun has not exhausted you, but rather anchored you to the earth. You are part of the vast, silent collective of the city, all sharing in this moment of suspended animation. The eternal city is resting, gathering its strength in the golden silence, and you drift alongside it, safe in the knowledge that for this hour the world is perfectly, beautifully still.
To escape the heavy, vibrating stillness of the midday heat, you follow a sound that cuts through the warmth like a silver thread, the persistent, melodic rush of falling water. As you move away from the baked expanses of the open plazas, the sound grows from a delicate trickle into a robust, rhythmic splash. You find yourself standing before one of Rome's many public fountains, a monumental structure of travertine and bronze that serves as a vital oasis for the city's parched inhabitants. The air here is instantly different, carrying a localized coolness that feels like a physical relief against your sun-warmed skin. The water you see before you has undergone an incredible journey, having traveled for dozens of miles from the high, snow-capped peaks of the Apennines. It has flowed through the dark, cool tunnels of the great stone aqueducts, carried by the invisible hand of gravity across massive arched bridges that span the Roman Campagna. This water is the lifeblood of the empire, a triumph of engineering that brings the purity of the mountains into the very heart of the urban sprawl. Knowing the distance it has traveled adds a sense of majesty to its arrival, making the simple act of flowing seem like a grand procession. The water spills with a steady, forceful grace from a large bronze lion's head whose weathered surface has taken on a beautiful green patina over the years. The lion's mouth is frozen in a silent roar, releasing a continuous crystalline stream that arches through the air before crashing into a deep marble basin below. The sound of this impact is a constant shimmering splash, a textured white noise symphony that effectively masks the distant noise of the traffic and the low hum of the market. It creates a private sanctuary of sound, an acoustic wall that shuts out the world and leaves only the purity of the element. The basin itself is a work of art, carved from a single massive block of gray-veined marble. Its edges are smooth and rounded, polished by the countless hands that have reached into its depths over the decades. As the water fills the basin, it creates a surface of constant motion, swirling eddies and dancing bubbles that catch the light in 1,000 different ways. You stand for a moment just watching the turbulence, mesmerized by the chaotic yet rhythmic patterns of the water as it overflows the lip of the stone and disappears into the drainage grates below. You reach forward and dip your hands into the basin, and the sensation is immediate and transformative. The water is shockingly cold, a biting, bracing chill that speaks of its origins in the high mountain springs where the sun rarely touches the deep pools. It is an honest, piercing cold that startles your senses and then immediately soothes them. As the water closes over your wrists, you feel your internal temperature drop, your pulse slowing in response to the mountain's icy gift. This is water in its most primitive and powerful form, untainted by the city it serves. You cup your hands and lift a small pool of the liquid to your face. The water is remarkably pure, as clear as the air on a winter morning. When you drink, it tastes of nothing but coldness and minerals, the clean, sharp flavor of the earth's deep aquifers. It is a humble luxury, yet in the peak of the Roman summer, it feels more valuable than all the gold in the treasury. Each swallow is a renewal, a literal infusion of the wilderness into your weary frame, washing away the dust and the lethargy of the noonday sun. In the harsh, perpendicular light of the noon sun, the droplets that cling to your skin and the spray that rises from the fountain begin to sparkle like a million tiny diamonds. Each bead of water acts as a minute prism, catching the solar rays and refracting them into brilliant flashes of white and blue. As you move your hands, the light dances across your damp skin in a flickering, hypnotic display. The contrast between the brilliant, crystalline water and the heavy, earth-toned stones of the street is a visual delight that reinforces the feeling of being in a place of miraculous abundance. A few other citizens join you at the fountain, their movements slow and respectful of the shared resource. A laborer rinses the dust from his arms, and a young woman fills a terracotta jar with a rhythmic glug-glug sound. There is a communal silence here, an unspoken agreement to cherish the coolness. The presence of others does not break your solitude, rather it emphasizes the communal peace that the water provides. You all stand for a moment, unified by the simple, profound pleasure of the mountain's bounty. You linger by the fountain, letting the fine mist from the splash settle on your face like a cool shroud. The sound of the rushing water begins to pulse in your ears, a steady drumbeat that drowns out your own racing thoughts. You find yourself focusing on a single bubble as it swirls around the lion's shadow, tracing its path until it vanishes. This meditative observation pulls you deeper into the present moment, stripping away the past and the future, until only the cold water and the warm sun remain. When you finally step away from the basin, your skin feels refreshed and your mind remarkably clear. The dampness on your hands evaporates slowly in the heat, leaving a faint, pleasant coolness behind. The sound of the fountain follows you as you walk, a fading echo of the mountains that continues to provide a rhythmic anchor for your steps. You carry the memory of the cold with you, a mental reservoir of peace that will sustain you as you move toward the next chapter of the Roman day.
You arrive at the massive complex of the Baths of Caracalla, a structure so immense it feels less like a building and more like a mountain of brick and marble, carved by the hands of gods. This is a cathedral of the body, a vast monument dedicated to the Roman ritual of water and wellness. As you approach the towering exterior walls, the sheer verticality of the brickwork looms over you, stripping away the noise of the city and replacing it with an atmosphere of solemn, heavy grandeur. The transition from the sun-beaten streets to the threshold of the baths is a journey from the chaotic world of men into a realm of engineered serenity. As you pass through the colossal entrance, the scale of the interior vaulted ceilings takes your breath away. They arch so high above that the upper reaches are lost in a soft, hazy gloom, making you feel as though you have stepped into a natural cavern of impossible proportions. The architecture does not feel oppressive, rather it creates a sense of infinite breathing room.
You look up at the intricate coffering of the vaults, recessed squares that serve to lighten the weight of the concrete, and marvel at how such a massive space can feel so profoundly balanced and still. The light in this great hall is unlike any you have seen before. It does not stream in with the harsh clarity of the outside sun. Instead, it filters through high, semi-transparent windows made of thin, expertly shaved sheets of alabaster and marble. This stone glass transforms the fierce Roman noon into a soft, ethereal glow that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. The light is a pale, milky amber, casting long, diffused shadows that soften the edges of the statues and pillars, creating a dreamlike environment where the boundaries of the room seem to expand and contract with the shifting mist. As you walk deeper into the complex, you notice that the sound of your footsteps is strangely muffled. The hard basalt and marble floors, which echoed so sharply in the forum, now yield only a dull, dampened thud. This acoustic softening is caused by the heavy humidity that hangs in the air and the sheer, cavernous volume of the space, which swallows sound before it can bounce. Every noise, the distant splash of a bucket, the low murmur of a conversation, is rounded off and smoothed, contributing to a pervasive silence that feels thick and protective. The air here is a tactile presence, warm and weighted with the scent of wood smoke from the subterranean furnaces and the clean mineral tang of heated stone. It carries a hint of laurel and olive oil, the remnants of the bather's preparations. As you breathe it in, you feel the humidity begin to loosen the tension in your chest, inviting your lungs to expand fully. The atmosphere is an embrace of moisture and warmth, a physical invitation to slow your pace and surrender to the slow, rhythmic pulse of the bathing ritual. You pause to look at the walls, which are encrusted with multicolored marbles and colossal mosaics that depict the legends of the sea. Under the soft, marble-filtered light, the figures of tritons and nereids seem to shimmer as if they are underwater. The immense scale of the artwork mirrors the scale of the room, yet there is an intimacy in the craftsmanship. Each tiny tessera, each sliver of stone, contributes to a grander vision of order and beauty. Standing before them, you feel a sense of quietude, your mind settling into the rhythmic patterns of the geometric borders. In the distance, the sound of water falling into a great porphyry basin creates a steady, rhythmic cadence. It is a deep, resonant splash that vibrates through the humid air, acting as a heartbeat for the building. You find yourself timing your steps to this sound, moving through the halls with a deliberate, meditative grace. There is no reason to hurry here. The baths are a sanctuary where time is measured not by the shadow of a sundial, but by the gradual warming and cooling of the skin. You feel a profound sense of anonymity within these massive walls. In the baths, the distinctions of the outside world, rank, wealth, and worry, seem to dissolve in the mist. You are simply a body moving through space, a guest of the empire's generosity. This social silence is deeply restorative, allowing you to turn your attention inward. The architecture acts as a shield, a mountain of stone that stands between you and the demands of your life, granting you the rare luxury of total, unobserved presence. The temperature shifts subtly as you move from one hall to the next, a choreographed transition of heat and cold. You feel the radiant warmth rising from the floors, heated by the invisible breath of the hypocausts below. It is a gentle, persistent heat that seeps into the soles of your feet and travels up through your limbs, softening the muscles and calming the nerves. The floor feels like a living thing, pulsing with the subterranean energy of the fires that keep the mountain of the baths alive. As you stand in the center of the great hall,
dwarfed by the soaring vaults and bathed in the amber light of the marble windows, you feel a sense of total immersion. The city of Rome, with its noise and its history, feels miles away. Here, you are cradled in the heart of a stone giant, surrounded by the gentle sounds of water and the hushed movements of a world at rest. You are safe, you are silent, and you are ready to sink deeper into the cooling, restorative shadows of the ritual.
You walk across a floor that is a literal sea of stone, covered in millions of tiny tesserae that form an expansive, breathtaking masterpiece. These hand-cut tiles, no larger than a fingernail, depict a mythic world of dolphins leaping through frothing foam, powerful tritons blowing into conch shells, and endless swirling waves that seem to undulate beneath your feet. The sheer density of the detail is overwhelming, yet it creates a sense of profound order. Every curve of a dolphin's back and every spiral of a wave is a testament to the patient, rhythmic labor of the craftsman who spent years pressing these stones into the mortar. Each step you take across this surface provides a direct, tactile connection to the artistry of the past. The floor is not perfectly flat. You can feel the slight, subtle variations in the height of the individual stones, a texture that gently massages the soles of your feet. It is a grounding sensation that makes the history of Rome feel less like a distant story and more like a physical reality. You are walking on the same patterns that have supported the weight of emperors and poets, a continuity of touch that spans the centuries. The colors of the stones are incredibly rich, drawn from the far-reaching corners of the Roman world. You see deep, midnight blues of lapis and sodalite, vibrant forest greens of serpentine, and the warm, earthy browns of Tuscan clay. Because of the heavy humidity of the baths, these stones are coated in a thin, shimmering film of moisture. This layer of water acts as a natural varnish, deepening the hues and making the blue tiles look as dark as the deep Mediterranean and the greens as lush as a mountain glade. As you move, the light from the high marble-paned windows catches the moisture on the floor, sending tiny glints of light dancing across the surface. The dolphins seem to shimmer, their stone scales reflecting the amber glow of the room. This visual movement, combined with the rhythmic pattern of the waves, creates a hypnotic effect. Your gaze is pulled downward, focusing on the intricate geometry of the borders, the interlocking meanders and braids that frame the central scenes. The complexity of the patterns serves to quiet the mind, offering a focal point for your wandering thoughts. The air here is even more still than in the entrance halls, a humid silence that feels heavy and protective. The path of the mosaic leads you deeper into the heart of the bath complex, drawing you away from the lingering glare of the outside world. With every step, the bright, sharp memories of the sun-drenched forum fade, replaced by the cool, indoor twilight of the frigidarium. You are moving into the core of the mountain of stone, a transition that feels like a slow descent into a peaceful, submerged kingdom. You notice the way the sound of the baths changes as you progress along this mosaic path. The distant echoes of the gymnasium and the murmurs of the changing rooms begin to fall away, replaced by the more immediate, liquid sounds of the water basins. The drip-drip of condensation falling from a vaulted archway becomes a steady metronome, marking your progress. The mosaic serves as your guide, a colorful map of the sea that leads you toward the healing properties of the water. The moisture on the floor makes the stone feel cool and slightly slick, a sensation that prepares your body for the immersion to come. You find yourself walking more slowly, taking care to appreciate the transition. The contrast between the rougher texture of the unadorned brick walls and the smooth, artistic luxury of the floor creates a sensory balance. One represents the strength and utility of Rome, the other its love for beauty and the good life. You are suspended between the two, a traveler in a landscape of engineered perfection.
As you reach the center of the room, the mosaic depicts a great whirlpool of waves, its concentric circles drawing the eye toward a central point of stillness. You pause here, standing in the middle of the stone vortex. The silence of the room is absolute, broken only by your own steady breathing. You feel the immense weight of the vaulted ceiling above and the sturdy reliability of the million stones beneath. This vertical alignment of stone provides a sense of profound psychological centering. The scent of the room is clean and mineral-heavy, the smell of wet marble and fresh water. It is a neutral, calming aroma that clears the senses. You look back at the path you have traveled, seeing your own damp footprints on the colorful tiles. They are temporary marks on an eternal surface, a reminder of your fleeting but meaningful presence in this grand space. The realization brings a sense of humility and peace as you recognize yourself as part of a long, unbroken chain of human experience. Finally, the mosaic path ends at the edge of a great turquoise pool. The transition from the stone sea of the floor to the liquid sea of the bath is seamless. You stand on the final row of tiles, looking down into the still, clear water that reflects the high arches above. The outside world is now a distant memory, a flicker of light and noise that cannot reach you here. You are ready to leave the shore of the mosaic and submerge yourself in the cooling, restorative heart of the Roman afternoon.
In the tepidarium, the atmosphere shifts into a realm of soft, humid suspension where the air becomes a tactile presence, thick and warm. As you cross the threshold, the moisture wraps around your shoulders like a heavy, invisible blanket, immediately softening the boundary between your skin and the world. This is the room of transition, the heart of the Roman bathing ritual, designed to bridge the gap between the cool of the day and the intense heat of the steam. Here, the air doesn't move. It sits in a peaceful, weighted stillness that encourages the lungs to expand with a slow, deliberate ease. The architectural grace of the room is shrouded in a gentle, persistent mist that clings to the high, vaulted ceiling. You find a seat on a wide marble bench, its surface polished to a silky smooth finish by centuries of use. As you settle against the stone, you feel a radiant, constant warmth rising through the seat and the floor. This is the work of the hypocaust, a subterranean marvel of engineering where invisible fires breathe heat through hollow chambers beneath your feet. The warmth is not sharp or aggressive. It is a steady, nurturing glow that seems to come from the very bones of the building. This heat is deep and penetrating, moving beyond the surface of your skin to reach the core of your muscles. You can feel the tension in your shoulders, carried from the walks through the crowded forum, beginning to dissolve like salt in water. The warmth acts as a gentle solvent, loosening the knots of the day and coaxing your body into a state of total surrender. As your muscles slacken, your pulse naturally begins to slow, falling into a rhythmic, heavy beat that matches the somnolent pulse of the room itself. The walls of the tepidarium are not flat surfaces, but a series of deep, arched niches that give the room a sense of rhythmic depth. Within these alcoves stand statues of the gods, carved from the finest white marble. They are depicted in states of eternal repose, reclining on stone couches, their limbs draped in effortless poses of relaxation. Looking at them, you see the ideal of Roman peace, a stillness that is both powerful and completely at rest. Their sightless eyes, carved with a serene focus, seem to watch over the bathers through the shifting veils of mist, offering a silent blessing of tranquility. The sound in the tepidarium is a study in muted textures. The thick, humid air acts as a natural dampener, turning the occasional splash of water or a distant voice into a soft, rounded echo. You hear the rhythmic drip, drip of condensation gathering on the marble cornices and falling into small collection basins.
It is a slow, liquid metronome that marks a time untethered from the sun or the shadow of a sundial. In this acoustic cocoon, the internal noise of your own thoughts begins to fade, replaced by the steady, comforting sound of the building breathing. As you sit in the warmth, your vision begins to soften. The edges of the marble pillars and the outlines of the statues blur slightly in the humid air, creating a dreamlike landscape where stone and steam merge. The light, filtered through high clerestory windows, arrives as a dusty golden haze that illuminates the floating motes of moisture. You find yourself staring at a single point on the mosaic floor, watching the way the dampness makes the colored stones glisten like jewels. The world is reduced to this small, warm space, and for the first time, the passage of hours feels entirely irrelevant. The scent of the tepidarium is a complex, grounding perfume of damp earth, heated minerals, and the faint, sweet aroma of medicinal herbs. Perhaps a nearby bather is being rubbed with oil of lavender or rosemary. The fragrance carries on the steam, light enough to be pleasant, but heavy enough to anchor you in the moment. It is a clean, primordial smell that clears the senses and invites a profound mental clarity, even as the body grows heavy with lethargy. You feel a sense of profound psychological centering as the heat continues its work. In the tepidarium, there is no expectation of movement or productivity. The very purpose of the room is to simply be, to exist in the threshold between states. This lack of demand is a rare luxury, and you lean into it, letting your head rest back against the warm marble wall. You feel the solidity of the Roman Empire in the stone behind you, a strength that is now being used not to conquer, but to comfort. The silence of the gods in their niches becomes your own silence. You observe the way the light catches the marble brow of a reclining Apollo, the shadows in the carved drapery of his robe shifting as the steam moves through the room. There is a great shared dignity in this quietude. Everyone in the room is a participant in a silent pact of rest, a collective descent into the deep waters of relaxation. You are not alone, yet your solitude is perfectly preserved within the humid embrace of the chamber. As you finally prepare to move toward the next room, you feel as though your body has been remade. The heaviness in your limbs is no longer the weight of fatigue, but the weight of peace. You stand up slowly, your movements fluid and unhurried. The warmth of the hypocaust stays with you, a glowing coal in your center that will protect you from any chill. You are now fully transitioned, a creature of the mist and the stone, ready to move deeper into the heart of the Roman afternoon.
You step into the caldarium, and the world as you know it simply vanishes. The transition from the warm tepidarium to this chamber is like moving from a summer afternoon into the heart of a storm cloud. The steam here is so thick, so white and opaque, that the massive columns and soaring arches seem to dissolve into nothingness. The boundaries of the room are lost, replaced by a humid, swirling infinity that presses gently against your eyes and skin. In this space, the grand architecture of Rome is no longer made of stone, but of mist and heat. The heat is the first thing to claim you, a profound, enveloping embrace that feels as though the air itself has become a liquid. It is a humid, heavy warmth that reaches into the deepest recesses of your lungs, inviting you to breathe with a slow, rhythmic depth you haven't felt all day. There is no escape from it, and soon you realize you don't want one. The intensity of the temperature forces an immediate and total surrender. Your mind stops calculating and starts simply feeling, surrendering to the overwhelming sensory presence of the steam. Through the white veil, the sound of water dripping from the high vaulted ceiling into the hot pools is slow, deliberate, and resonant. Each drop strikes the surface with a deep plink that echoes through the chamber,
amplified by the wet surfaces of the walls. It is a liquid metronome, marking a time that has nothing to do with the world outside the bathhouse walls. The sound is lonely, yet comforting, a rhythmic pulse that grounds you in the middle of the featureless white mist. You move toward the edge of the great central pool, your feet finding the smooth, hot marble of the submerged steps. As you submerge yourself in the hot water, a shudder of pure relief ripples through your frame. The water is a degree away from being too hot, a perfect, stinging heat that immediately claims your limbs. You feel the last remnants of tension, the tiny knots in your neck, the tightness in your lower back, the residual stress of the city's noise simply detach from your body and float away into the steam. Your body becomes weightless as the water supports you, and for the first time you feel the true meaning of the Roman solace, health and well-being. The heat of the pool works in tandem with the steam in the air to create a total sensory enclosure. You lean your head back against the smooth, curved lip of the basin, closing your eyes. The world of the Palatine Hill, the merchants on the Via Sacra, and the orators at the Rostra all feel like distant, flickering memories from another person's life. As you float, your mind begins to drift, untethered from the concerns of the day. The thoughts that felt so heavy this morning, the duties of the household, the complexities of the law, the social expectations of the city, now seem thin and unsubstantial. They cannot survive in this heat. They evaporate like the water on the stones. You find yourself existing in a state of pure, thoughtless presence, a mental meditatio that is deeper and more profound than any sleep. The air you breathe is heavily scented, a thick perfume of cedarwood and balsamic resins that have been added to the water. It is a dark, woody aroma that feels like it belongs in an ancient forest, grounding the ethereal experience of the steam with an earthy, organic foundation. The scent acts as a sedative for the spirit, smoothing out the jagged edges of your consciousness until you are as fluid and calm as the water surrounding you. You are no longer an individual with a name and a history. You are merely a spark of awareness in a sea of warmth. In this humid sanctuary, the silence is not empty, but full of the presence of the building itself. You can feel the vibration of the great fires in the hypocausts far below, a low-frequency hum that travels through the water and into your bones. It is the heartbeat of the colossal brick you are inside, a reminder of the colossal effort required to create this moment of perfect individual peace. The engineering of an empire has been funneled into this single private experience of heat and water. Occasionally, the steam thins for a fraction of a second, revealing a glimpse of a marble goddess in a nearby niche or the flash of a golden mosaic on the ceiling. These images appear like fragments of a dream before the mist closes in again, reclaiming the world. These brief visual anchors only serve to emphasize your isolation and safety. You are hidden in the heart of Rome, wrapped in a shroud of white that no worry or interruption can pierce. You remain in the water until your very soul feels as though it has been rinsed clean. The heat has done its work, turning your body into a vessel of pure relaxation and your mind into a quiet, sunlit room. When you finally decide to emerge, you move with a slow, liquid grace, your limbs feeling long and unburdened. You leave the caldarium not just as a person who has bathed, but as one who has been transformed, ready to carry the stillness of the steam back out into the cooling shadows of the Roman evening.
Leaving the baths, you step into the Subura, the city's most vibrant and densely packed district, where the monumental order of the Forum gives way to the pulsing, untamed heart of Roman life. The transition is visceral. The quiet marble echoes of the baths are replaced by a wall of sound and a kaleidoscope of movement. Here the streets are narrow and winding, twisting like the beds of ancient streams between the towering insulae.
These apartment buildings, stacked precariously high with their timber-framed balconies, seem to lean toward one another, creating a permanent canyon of shadow that keeps the ground level cool even as the afternoon sun blazes above. The air in the Subura is thick and intoxicating, a sensory soup that tells the story of 1,000 different lives. The cool mineral scent of the frigidarium is instantly replaced by the warm, oily aroma of fried fish sizzling in heavy iron pans at the street-side thermopolia. You smell the sharp, savory tang of spicy sausages, heavily seasoned with pepper and fennel, dripping their fats onto glowing charcoal. Mixed into this savory cloud is the cloying floral sweetness of mulsum, the dark wine fortified with honey that is being poured into terracotta cups at every corner. It is a scent that feels alive, a potent reminder of the city's insatiable appetite. As you navigate the winding pavement, you realize that despite the apparent frenzy, there is a profound rhythm to the chaos. The streets function according to an unwritten choreography, a shared understanding of space that allows the flow of humanity to continue without collision. You watch as a group of laborers, a flower seller with her woven baskets, and a weary scribe move past each other with the precision of dancers. There is a collective patience here, a realization that in the Subura, the only way to move is to yield and flow with the current of the crowd. The calls of the vendors rise above the din like a familiar, recurring song. You hear the rhythmic cry of the garum merchant, praising his fermented fish sauce, his voice rising in a melodic arc that is answered by the sharp staccato barks of the vegetable seller across the way. These voices are not mere noise, they are the traditional liturgy of the marketplace, a vocal tapestry that has remained unchanged for generations. The repetition of these calls provides a strange sense of comfort, a vocal anchor that tells you exactly where you are in the grand geography of Rome. Looking up, the insulae themselves seem to be breathing. From the upper windows you hear the muffled sounds of domestic life, the clatter of a loom, the laughter of children, and the rhythmic washing of floors. Colorful laundry hangs from the wooden railings, fluttering like the banners of a triumphant army in the slight breeze that manages to penetrate the alleyways. These buildings are vertical villages, each one a self-contained world of stories, dreams, and struggles, all held together by the same red-tiled roofs that glow in the late afternoon light. The ground-level shops, or taberne, spill their wares out onto the street, narrowing the passage even further. You pass crates of olives glistening in brine, stacks of coarse wool tunics, and baskets of dried figs from the east. The textures here are as varied as the scents. You feel the rough grain of the wood as you brush past a shop stall, and the smooth, cool surface of a ceramic jug. The Subura is a tactile experience, a place where the empire's vast trade networks are reduced to the scale of a single hand, and every object carries the dust of a distant province. You find yourself slowing your pace to match the heartbeat of the district. The initial overwhelming sensation of the crowd begins to settle into a meditative hum. You watch the way a stray dog expertly weaves through the legs of the pedestrians, and how the light from the setting sun strikes the top floor of an insula, turning the crumbling plaster into a surface of glowing gold. The Subura is a place of contrasts, of poverty and wealth, of shadow and light, but in this hour it feels like a unified, breathing entity, a collective expression of human resilience. There is a sense of deep communal safety in this density. You are surrounded by the presence of your fellow citizens, all engaged in the ancient, simple acts of buying, selling, and returning home. The anonymity you felt in the baths is replaced by a sense of belonging to a massive, bustling family. The shared glances, the brief nods of acknowledgement, and the way the crowd parts for an elderly man all speak to a social fabric that is as strong and enduring as the stone of the forum. The sound of the district begins to act as a restorative drone. The clatter of pottery, the splash of water into a bucket, and the distant rhythmic thud of a carpenter's hammer all blend into a single percussive symphony. It is the sound of productivity, of a city that never truly rests because it is always in the process of becoming. You feel a surge of vitality as you move through this energy, the quietude you found in the frigidarium now acting as a stable core that allows you to observe the vibrancy without being drained by it. By the time you reach the edge of the Subura, where the streets begin to widen and climb back toward the Palatine, you feel deeply enriched by the experience. You have touched the raw, unpolished spirit of Rome and found it to be full of warmth and music. The scents of the spicy sausages and sweet honey wine linger in your mind, a fragrant bridge between the common life of the streets and the silent grandeur of the hills. You are balanced, grounded, and ready to return to your high sanctuary, carrying the heartbeat of the Subura within you.
You return to your home on the Palatine as the sun begins its long, golden descent, casting the silhouettes of the grand cypresses across the stone pathways. The transition from the bustling, sensory-rich streets of the Subura to the private threshold of your villa is immediate and profound. As the heavy cedar doors close behind you, the roar of Rome is silenced, replaced by an intimate, protected hush. You move through the vestibule, your footsteps transitioning from the hard basalt of the street to the cool, intricate mosaics of your own hall, feeling the weight of the day's journey begin to lift from your shoulders. You step into the peristyle, the open-air garden that serves as the green, living heart of the villa. Here, the architecture is designed to embrace the elements while providing a sanctuary from the world's chaos. The space is a perfect square of tranquility, where the boundary between the domestic and the natural is artfully blurred. After the vast, soaring vaults of the public baths and the crowded canyons of the apartment blocks, this private garden feels like a return to the self, a place where the scale is human and the rhythm is entirely your own. The square of sky above is perfectly framed by a slender marble pillars, their white surfaces now taking on the warm, honeyed glow of the late afternoon. These columns are more delicate than the giants of the Forum, designed for grace rather than intimidation. You watch as the sunlight moves across the fluting of the marble, creating a series of vertical lines that divide the garden into shifting patterns of light and shadow. The symmetry of the colonnade provides a visual anchor, a geometric reassurance that you are back within the ordered confines of your own life. In the center of this green sanctuary, a small bronze fountain trickles quietly. It is a humble, private echo of the great roaring fountains of the city, but its voice is no less significant. The water spills from a delicate urn held by a bronze nymph, falling into a shallow marble basin with a soft, rhythmic lap-lap sound. Unlike the public fountains that mask the noise of traffic, this one highlights the silence of the villa, its gentle music acting as a focal point for your meditation. It is a private spring, a personal gift from the aqueducts that brings the coolness of the mountains directly into your home. You walk slowly around the perimeter of the garden, your fingers brushing against the cool marble of the pillars. The air in the peristyle is noticeably cooler than the street, trapped within the thick stone walls and chilled by the greenery and the fountain. You feel a sense of profound ownership and belonging. This space was designed for your comfort, a curated environment where every leaf and stone is in its proper place. The chaos of the Subura feels like a dream from another life as you sink into the predictable, quiet beauty of your surroundings. As the sun dips lower, the light in the peristyle turns a deep, bruised purple, mirroring the sky you saw during the fourth watch of the night. The stars are not yet visible, but the square of sky above is deepening, the blue becoming so dark it is almost translucent. You watch as the shadows of the columns stretch across the garden, eventually touching the fountain and the roses. This slow, silent movement is the final clock of your day, a natural progression that signals the time for reflection and rest. You find a comfortable seat on a stone bench near the fountain, letting the sound of the water lull your mind into a state of total stillness. The physical journey through the city, from the high balcony to the deep baths and the crowded markets, is now complete. You have moved through the bloodline of the empire and returned to the source. The mental clarity you found in the frigidarium remains with you, now complemented by the emotional warmth of your home. You are a silent observer of your own peace, content to watch the light fade from the marble. The villa begins to settle for the night, the distant sound of a servant lighting a lamp in the triclinium providing a soft, domestic counterpoint to the fountain's trickle. The air grows stiller, the scents of the garden becoming more concentrated in the twilight. You sit in the deepening shade, feeling the solid travertine beneath you and the vast, quiet history of your city all around you. The circle of the day is closing, and as the first stars begin to wink in the square of sky above, you realize that you are exactly where you were meant to be, rested, restored, and home.
From a neighboring house, hidden behind the high, ivy-clad stone of the garden wall, the faint and ethereal sound of a lyre begins to drift into your peristyle. It is a sound that feels less like a performance and more like a natural phenomenon, as if the air itself had decided to vibrate in a new, melodic frequency. The strings are plucked with a slow, wandering touch, producing notes that linger and shimmer before dissolving into the twilight. This music possesses a haunting, translucent quality, carrying the resonance of the ancient world into the intimate space of your sanctuary. The melody seems to have no beginning and no end, eschewing a structured rhythm for a fluid, stream of consciousness progression. It meanders through the scale, sometimes lingering on a high, bright note that catches the stillness of the evening, and then dipping into a low, resonant chord that vibrates against the garden wall. There is no urgency in the playing, no desire to reach a climax or a conclusion. It is a musical expression of the meridiatio spirit, a celebration of the present moment that invites you to lose your sense of linear time. The music is thin and bright, a sharp contrast to the heavy, humid atmosphere of the baths or the dense, savory scents of the sabura. Each pluck of the gut strings produces a sound that is clear and crystalline, hanging in the still air like a spark of light. It is an intellectual sound, one that appeals to the mind's desire for order and beauty, yet it remains deeply emotional, evoking a sense of nostalgia for a past that is both personal and collective. You find yourself leaning toward the wall, letting the delicate vibrations wash over you. This wandering melody harmonizes perfectly with the rhythmic, percussive chirping of the cicadas nestled in the dark foliage of the cypress trees. The insects provide a steady, dry drone, a persistent hum that acts as the heartbeat of the Italian evening. While the lyre provides the shimmering surface of the music, the cicadas provide the depth and the drive. Together, they create a multi-layered acoustic landscape where the artificial and the natural merge into a single seamless tapestry of sound that feels as though it has always existed. The layer of sound created by this duet is both ancient and deeply soothing. It is the same combination of strings and nature that might have been heard by the first kings of Rome or the poets of the Republic. There is a profound sense of continuity in this harmony. It is a sonic reminder that while empires rise and fall, the song of the lyre and the cry of the cicada remain constant. This realization brings a sense of historical perspective that settles the spirit, making your own place in the timeline of the city feel both small and securely anchored. As the light continues to fade, the music seems to grow more vivid, as if the darkness provides a cleaner canvas for the sound. You notice the subtle nuances in the playing,
the way the musician allows the strings to vibrate just a second longer, or the soft percussive tap of a finger against the wooden frame of the instrument. These details make the music feel human and immediate, a private bridge between your garden and the life of your neighbor. It is a reminder that even in a city of millions, the most profound connections are often the most subtle. The rhythm of the cicadas begins to syncopate with the slow, liquid splashing of your fountain. The drip-drop of the water provides a third layer of sound, a low-frequency percussion that grounds the brightness of the lyre. You find yourself caught in a three-way harmony of string, insect, and water, a triad of elements that represents the perfect Roman balance. This acoustic environment is a masterclass in tranquility, a soundscape designed to peel away the last lingering layers of external noise until only a core of internal peace remains. You close your eyes and let the thin, bright notes map out the space of your garden in the dark. You can see the pillars, the boxwood, and the roses through the way the sound reflects off the surfaces. The music acts as a sensory sonar, reinforcing the boundaries of your sanctuary while simultaneously expanding your consciousness beyond them. In this state of listening, the walls of the villa do not feel like barriers, but like the wooden body of the lyre itself, a resonator for the peace you have cultivated throughout the day. The wandering melody eventually finds a soft, recurring motif, a three-note phrase that rises and then gently settles. It is a musical sigh, a reflection of your own state of being. You find yourself anticipating the return of this phrase, your breathing naturally falling into rhythm with the musician's hand. The world is reduced to this single, beautiful interaction between the unseen player and the listening night. The complexity of the Roman day has been distilled into a single, wandering line of melody that carries the weight of the world with effortless grace. By the time the lyre finally falls silent, leaving only the steady drone of the cicadas, you feel as though you have been part of a profound ritual of closure. The music has acted as the final benediction of the day, a shimmering veil drawn over the activities of the light. The garden is now fully claimed by the night, and you remain on your bench, the echoes of the strings still vibrating in your mind. The city is asleep, the garden is still, and the ancient, soothing song of Rome continues to hum in the very marrow of your bones.
The sky begins its final majestic transformation, deepening into a rich royal purple that the poets call the violet hour. This is a specific, fleeting window of time where the Roman atmosphere seems to hold its breath, caught between the golden fire of the day and the silver rain of the night. The intense azure of the afternoon has dissolved into a bruised velvety indigo that feels thick enough to touch. As you look up through the square opening of the peristyle, the sky appears like a piece of precious silk, a deep Tyrian dye spread thin across the heavens, signaling that the imperial sun has finally surrendered its throne. As the light fades, the stones of the city undergo a physical and visual shift. The marble pillars of your colonnade, which had been a warm, glowing cream throughout the afternoon, now begin to absorb the cooling air of the evening. They shed their golden hue and take on a ghostly, luminous blue. This blue hour makes the stone appear translucent, as if the columns were carved from ice rather than rock. The transition is not just visual. You can feel the radiation of the heat leaving the marble, replaced by a refreshing mineral chill that marks the true beginning of the city's rest. The shadows of the columns, which had been shrinking at noon, now perform their final dramatic expansion. They stretch out across the mosaic floor of the garden in long, dark fingers of shade, reaching toward the center until they eventually overlap and merge. This creeping darkness is slow and deliberate, a rhythmic reclaiming of space.
Eventually, the shadows cover the entire floor of the garden, turning the vibrant dolphins and waves of the mosaic into a muted monochromatic sea of grays and blacks. The garden is no longer a place of distinct shapes, but a unified field of twilight. The transition from day to night is entirely seamless, a masterpiece of natural choreography. There is no sudden jolt, no flickering of the world's lights. Rather, the city is slowly and gracefully dimming its lamps. You watch as the distant horizon of the Janiculum Hill swallows the last sliver of the sun, and the world responds by softening its edges. The sharp architectural lines of the villa become blurred and dreamy, as if the entire city is being wrapped in a fine, dark gauze. The transition is a reminder that the universe operates on a cycle of perfect, unhurried balance. In the cooling air, the scents of the garden undergo their own evening evolution. The bright floral perfume of the roses recedes, replaced by the deeper, more nocturnal aroma of the damp earth and the resinous scent of the cypress trees. The moisture of the night begins to settle on the leaves, making the boxwood hedges smell sharp and clean. This olfactory shift is the final signal to your senses that the time for action is over. The air is now thin and crisp, carrying the metallic tang of the fountain's water more clearly than it did in the heat of the noon. The world is preparing for the transition from the sun to the moon, a shift in celestial governance that has dictated the rhythm of this city for 1,000 years. You can almost feel the presence of the moon rising behind the Calian hill, an invisible force pulling the silver light toward the rooftops. The sun was the god of the forum and the law, but the moon is the goddess of the home and the hearth. As the violet hour deepens, you find yourself ready for this change of guard, welcoming the softer, more reflective energy of the lunar night. A profound silence begins to settle over the Palatine, a deep, silver quiet that is different from the hushed rest of the midday meridiatio. This is the silence of the Nox, a time when the human world retreats and the spiritual world breathes. The distant sounds of the city, the wagons that are finally allowed to roll through the streets at night, the calls of the watchmen, are muffled by the thick stone walls of your villa. Within the peristyle, the only remaining sound is the steady, crystalline drip of the fountain, a liquid clock marking the transition into the dark. You watch as the first star appears in the center of the sky square above you, a tiny, piercing diamond set against the deep violet. It is soon joined by others, the constellations beginning to map out the familiar patterns that the Roman sailors used to navigate the Mediterranean. The sight of the stars reinforces the feeling of being part of a vast, orderly cosmos. The same lights that guided Romulus are now watching over you, a continuity of vision that makes the passage of time feel like a gentle revolving door rather than a linear race. Your own body feels perfectly synchronized with this cosmic dimming. The physical vitality you gained from the baths has settled into a deep, unshakable calmness. Your breathing has slowed to match the slow expansion of the shadows, and your mind is as clear and still as the water in the marble basin. You are no longer a participant in the drama of the day. You have become a spectator of the night. This state of being is the ultimate goal of the Roman life, the achievement of otium, a dignified leisure and peace of mind. Finally, as the last of the purple light vanishes and the sky turns a deep velvety black, you stand up from your bench. The violet hour has passed, and the night has truly arrived. You carry the stillness of the garden with you as you move toward the interior of the villa, where the soft amber glow of a single oil lamp awaits. The day is a memory of stone, water, and light, and as you prepare for sleep, you know that the city will continue its eternal cycle, waiting to wake again under the first cool mist of tomorrow's fourth watch. Inside the villa, The transition from the violet dusk to the intimacy of the night is marked by a silent, ritualistic progression. A household slave moves with practiced, ghostly grace from room to room, carrying a slender wax taper. This single point of fire is the seed from which the evening's warmth grows. As he moves, the darkness is not abruptly broken, but rather gently nudged aside, replaced by a series of small, soft glows that bloom like night-flowering lilies in the corners of the atrium and the recesses of the sleeping quarters. The light is born from dozens of small oil lamps, each a delicate terracotta vessel shaped by the hands of local potters. These lamps are simple, yet elegant, their clay bodies often stamped with tiny reliefs of laurel wreaths or theater masks. Within their hollow bellies, they hold a reservoir of refined, scented olive oil, perhaps infused with a hint of pine or citrus to mask the smell of the burning wick. The oil represents the essence of the Italian landscape, distilled into a liquid fuel that brings the sun's stored energy back into the house long after the sun itself has set. As the taper touches each wick, a tiny amber flame curls into existence. These are not the harsh, static lights of the modern world. They are living, breathing entities that pulse with a rhythmic vitality. The flames are small and teardrop-shaped, casting a warm golden light that is both fragile and persistent. They create a localized circle of visibility, making the vast rooms of the villa feel more intimate and manageable. The world beyond the reach of the lamplight fades into a deep, velvety mystery, focusing your attention on the immediate beauty of the home. The flickering nature of the flames transforms the architecture of the rooms, casting long, dancing shadows that stretch and contract along the frescoed walls. The pillars of the doorways seem to shift and sway, and the geometry of the ceiling takes on a fluid, organic quality. This play of light and shadow adds a layer of theatricality to the evening, turning the static walls into a moving tapestry. It is a visual dialogue between the flame and the stone, a constant, silent conversation that keeps the eye moving and a mind engaged. On these walls, the magnificent fourth-style frescoes, masterpieces of Roman interior design, begin to undergo a magical transformation. In the daytime, the paintings of lush, evergreen forests and golden wheat fields were beautiful decorations. In the flickering amber light, they seem to pulse with a vibrant inner life. The shadows cast by the lamps move across the painted leaves and stalks of grain, creating the illusion of a soft breeze blowing through the room. The depth of the perspective seems to expand, as if the walls have opened up to reveal a second, eternal landscape. These painted forests are populated by birds with iridescent feathers and hidden springs that now seem to glimmer under the lamplight. You find yourself gazing into a grove of painted oleanders, and for a moment, the boundary between the stone wall and the living garden of the mind disappears. The artists of Rome designed these spaces specifically to be viewed in this low, shifting light, knowing that the imagination would fill in the gaps left by the shadows. The villa is no longer just a shelter, it has become an indoor garden, a psychological sanctuary that mirrors the beauty of the world outside. The wheat fields in the frescoes, painted in rich ochres and burnt siennas, take on the actual color of ripening grain under the amber flames. You can almost feel the dry heat of the harvest and the smell of the sun-baked earth as the light plays across the painted horizon. This visual abundance serves as a constant reminder of the empire's prosperity and the stability of the Roman peace. Even in the middle of the night, you are surrounded by the promise of the next season's bread, a comforting reassurance of continuity and survival. The air inside the rooms changes as the lamps are lit, carrying the faint, pleasant scent of the burning olive oil and the warmed plaster of the walls. It is a dry, clean aroma that complements the floral scents drifting in from the peristyle. The humidity of the day has been banished by the soft heat of the flames, creating a crisp indoor microclimate that is perfectly suited for reflection or quiet conversation. You breathe in this scent of domesticity and order, feeling the final layers of the city's dust being replaced by the purity of your own home. You watch the slave complete his circuit, the tiny taper finally extinguished as the last lamp in the hallway is lit. The house is now a constellation of amber stars, a network of light that maps out the familiar geography of your life. The silence of the night is now complete, but it is a warm, luminous silence that feels full of possibility. The flickering light creates a sense of safety, a golden barrier against the vast, cold dark of the outside world. You are the master of this illuminated domain, centered and secure in the heart of your own creation. As you settle into your couch for the final hours of the day, you let your gaze wander through a window of a fresco, traveling deep into a painted valley that is now bathed in the same amber glow as your room. The journey of the day has led you here, to this moment of visual and mental harmony. The sun, the stone, and the water have all played their parts, and now the flame takes its turn to guide you into the realm of sleep. The world is a garden of the mind. The light is soft and steady, and the eternal city rests, as it always does, in the protective embrace of its own magnificent history.
You sit down to a simple meal as the stars begin to punctuate the deepening velvet of the sky, visible through the compluvium, the rectangular opening in the roof. The villa has breathed out the heat of the day, and now it inhales the cool, silver-scented air of the Roman night. This meal is not a grand banquet of excess, but a quiet, solitary communion with the basic elements of life. There is a profound elegance in the minimalism of the spread, laid out on a small citrus wood table that glows softly in the lamplight. You take a crust of the sourdough bread, the same panis quadratus whose aroma greeted you in the morning, and dip it into a shallow bowl of dark, heavy wine. The bread has aged through the day, its crust becoming firm and resilient, while the center remains chewy and dense. As it absorbs the wine, the sharp, fermented tang of the grain marries with the deep, fruit-laden complexity of the grape. The first bite is a revelation of texture and spirit, a fundamental combination of earth and sun that has sustained the Mediterranean soul for millennia. The flavors are concentrated and visceral, stripped of the elaborate sauces and spices that define the tables of the ambitious. You reach for a few brined olives, their skins dark and glistening with a light coating of oil. As you bite into them, a burst of salt and bitterness cleanses your palate, a sharp reminder of the rugged hillsides and the gnarled trees that produced them. These olives taste of the sea and the stone, an earthy, cured richness that feels as old as the foundations of the Palatine Hill itself. Next, you take a piece of sweet, dried fig, its skin wrinkled and dusty with natural sugars. When you pull it apart, the interior is a deep, seedy crimson, concentrated by the sun into a jam-like intensity. The sweetness is not cloying, but rich and complex, tasting of caramelized sunlight and late summer afternoons. It provides a perfect, honeyed counterpoint to the salt of the olives and the acidity of the wine, a final decadent note in this simple symphony of the earth's bounty. There is no conversation to distract you, no political maneuvering or social posturing to cloud the experience. The silence of the house is total, yet it is not empty. It is a full, resonant quiet that allows the senses to sharpen. You find that without the intrusion of speech, your focus narrows to the immediate physical reality of the food. Every chew is deliberate, every swallow a conscious act of gratitude. In this silence, the meal becomes a meditative practice, a way of grounding yourself in the absolute present. The only sound that breaks the stillness is the evening breeze as it wanders through the peristyle, rustling the waxy leaves of the lemon trees in the courtyard. It is a soft, dry sound, like the whisper of silk against stone. The fragrance of the citrus leaves, slightly bruised by the wind, drifts into the room, adding a bright botanical top note to the earthy sense of your meal. You listen to the rhythm of the leaves, a natural metronome that keeps time with your slow, mindful appreciation of the evening. Every bite is a slow, rhythmic celebration of the Roman world's stability. You are eating the products of the land you saw from your balcony at dawn, the grain of the plains, the grapes of the slopes, the olives of the groves. This meal is a map of the landscape, a way of internalizing the very territory you have walked through all day. There is a deep psychological comfort in this connection, a feeling that you are physically becoming a part of the environment that protects and provides for you. As the stars multiply in the square of sky above, their light reflects in the dark surface of your wine. You hold the cup for a moment, watching the tiny flickering points of silver dance in the deep red liquid. It is as if you were holding a piece of the cosmos in your hand. The scale of the universe above and the simplicity of the food below create a sense of perfect proportion. You are a small part of a vast order, yet you are nourished, safe, and profoundly content within your own corner of it. The simplicity of the meal clears your mind of the day's residual clutter. The complexities of the forum, the noise of the subura, and the humid mists of the baths are all distilled into these few concentrated flavors. You realize that this is the true luxury of the Roman life, not the gold or the marble, but the ability to find such profound satisfaction in a crust of bread and a piece of fruit. It is a stoic joy, a realization that the most essential things are often the most beautiful. By the time the last crumb of bread is gone and the final olive pit is set aside, you feel a sense of completion that no feast could provide. You lean back against the cushions, the taste of wine and fig lingering on your tongue like a sweet, dark shadow. The breeze continues to play among the lemon trees, and the stars continue their silent watch. You are filled with a quiet, elemental peace, ready at last to leave the world of the senses and drift into the silver-gray landscape of your dreams.
As the silver-blue light of the moon begins to dominate the courtyard, the air undergoes its final thermal shift of the day. The crisp, mineral coolness of the evening deepens, and in response to this drop in temperature, the night-blooming jasmine begins its silent, aromatic labor. The star-shaped white blossoms, which remained closed and unassuming under the fierce glare of the sun, now unfurl their petals to the dark. This is the queen of the night, a plant that waits for the world to settle into stillness before releasing the concentrated essence of its life into the cooling Roman air. The perfume is released not in a trickle, but in a heavy, intoxicating wave that seems to roll across the peristyle. It is a fragrance of incredible density, a sweet and floral weight that anchors the atmosphere. Unlike the bright, citrusy scents of the daytime lemon trees or the dry, herbal aroma of the boxwood, the jasmine is thick and narcotic. It hangs in the humid air near the ground, filling every corner of the courtyard, until the stone pillars themselves seem to be breathing out the scent of honey and musk. You breathe it in deeply, and the sensation is immediate and physical. As the fragrance fills your lungs, you can feel a corresponding release of tension in your chest. It is as if the scent has a chemical key to your nervous system, turning off the last lingering signals of alertness and replacing them with a state of profound receptivity. The sharp vertical energy of the day's ambitions, the standing in the forum, the walking through the subura, is completely dissolved by this horizontal atmospheric sweetness.
The jasmine acts as a physical presence in the night, a soft, invisible curtain drawn between you and the rest of the world. Within the boundaries of this scent, the city of Rome ceases to exist. The walls of your villa are no longer just stone and mortar. They are reinforced by this aromatic barrier, creating a sanctuary that is impenetrable to the worries of the state or the noise of the streets. You are wrapped in a shroud of perfume that is both delicate and absolute, a floral fortification for the soul. As you linger in the colonnade, you watch the way the white blossoms seem to glow in the dark, acting as tiny reflectors for the starlight. Each flower is a miniature beacon of fragrance, a testament to the hidden rhythms of the natural world. This nocturnal blooming is a reminder that while the human city sleeps, the earth continues its quiet, essential processes. There is a deep comfort in this continuity, a realization that you are resting within a larger living system that is both beautiful and tireless. The sweetness of the jasmine is balanced by the damp, dark smell of the garden soil, creating an olfactory harmony that is deeply grounding. It is a scent that speaks of growth, of roots reaching into the ancient volcanic earth of the Palatine, and of life flourishing in the dark. You find yourself matching your breathing to the slow dispersal of the perfume, each inhale drawing in the peace of the garden, and each exhale releasing the last remnants of the day's mental clutter. In this aromatic silence, the memory of the day's other smells, the wood smoke of the bakery, the lanolin of the togas, the metallic tang of the bronze statues, begins to fade into a unified, distant past. The jasmine is the now, a sensory bridge that leads you toward the realm of dreams. Its intensity is a signal that the day's labors are truly over. The time for the word, the law, and the coin has passed. Now is the time for the flower, the moon, and the breath. You observe the way the breeze carries the scent in rhythmic pulses, sometimes thinning and then returning with renewed strength. This ebb and flow mirrors the movement of the sea you saw depicted in the mosaics of the baths. The garden has become a liquid environment of fragrance, and you are submerged in it, floating in a sea of white floral notes. This sensory immersion is the final cleansing of the day, a ritual of the air that complements the ritual of the water you experienced at the baths of Carcalla. The fragrance begins to feel like a voice, a soft, melodic whisper that tells you it is safe to let go. It promises that the world will be here when you wake, that the sun will return to the marble, and that the cycles of the city are secure. You lean your head back against the cool stone of the pillar, the scent of the jasmine filling your senses, until your vision begins to blur with the onset of sleep. The violet hour has deepened into the black hour, and the perfume is your constant, silent companion in the dark. Finally, you stand and move toward your bedchamber, the scent of the jasmine following you like a loyal shadow. Even as you leave the open air of the courtyard, the perfume lingers in your hair and on your skin, a fragrant souvenir of the Roman night. You are fully relaxed, your heart is light, and your mind is clear. As you lie down in the darkness, the last thing you perceive is the sweet floral weight of the jasmine, a soft curtain that finally closes on the magnificent, enduring theater of your Roman day.
In the distance, drifting over the rooftops of the velodrome and echoing off the steep cliffs of the Capitoline, you hear a sound that signals the finality of the day, the heavy, metallic thud of the city gates being drawn shut. It is a resonant industrial groan of iron on stone, followed by the decisive boom of massive timber beams being slotted into place. This is the heartbeat of the Pomerium, the sacred boundary of Rome, announcing to all that the transition from the world of movement to the world of rest is complete. This sound carries with it a sense of absolute security, a physical vibration that you can almost feel in the soles of your feet. It is the closing of a great eye, a signal that the city has pulled its shutters against the vast, unpredictable wilderness of the Italian night. For the Roman citizen, the shutting of the gates is not an act of imprisonment, but one of profound sanctuary. Within these walls, the order of the emperor and the protection of the gods are concentrated and absolute. The city is now a fortress of sleep, a colossal stone nest protected by walls that have stood for centuries. These fortifications, layers of tufa, brick, and concrete, are more than just military defenses. They are the skin of the city, holding the collective dreams of 1 million people safe within their embrace. As the gates lock, the city becomes a self-contained universe, an island of civilization surrounded by the dark, silent tides of the countryside. You feel the weight of those centuries of protection pressing down, a comforting gravity that anchors your own house to the earth. The noise of the world outside is effectively cut off, severed by the closing of the portals. The distant creak of ox carts waiting on the VI, the calls of travelers seeking late entry, and the rustle of the surrounding forests are suddenly extinguished. In their place, a new silence emerges, a thick urban quiet that is unique to the Roman night. It is a silence that highlights the scale of the city, making the space between the hills feel vast and expectant. With the external world silenced, the internal sounds of the house become more vivid and rhythmic. You hear the soft rhythmic breathing of the villa itself, the expansion and contraction of the wooden rafters as they cool, the occasional settling of the floor tiles, and the distant muffled chime of a servant moving a bronze vessel. These sounds are the domestic vocabulary of safety, a series of small, familiar noises that reinforce the boundaries of your private world. The natural sounds of the Roman night now rise to fill the vacuum left by the city's bustle. From the cypress groves on the Palatine slope, the hoot of an owl carries through the still air, a lonely, haunting call that sounds like the voice of the night itself. The wind, no longer broken by the movement of crowds, whistles with a cleaner, sharper tone through the fluted columns of your peristyle. It is a reminder that even in the heart of the greatest empire, nature remains the ultimate landlord. You find yourself listening to the absence of sound as much as the sounds themselves. The silence is not empty, it is a textured, heavy presence that feels like a layer of wool wrapped around the house. It is the sound of 1 million people breathing in unison, a collective exhale that marks the end of the day's ambitions. In this silence, your own thoughts become clearer, slower, and more deliberate, matching the unhurried pace of the sleeping city. The metallic thud of the gates continues to echo in your memory, a psychological anchor that allows you to finally let go of your vigilance. In a world of shifting borders and distant wars, the solidity of the Roman gate is a primary truth. It represents the contract between the state and the citizen. In exchange for your loyalty, you are granted a night of perfect, undisturbed peace. You lean your head back, the cool air of the night brushing against your skin, and feel the immense power of that contract. The fountain in the courtyard seems to grow louder in the absence of the city's hum, its splashing becoming a silver thread that weaves through the darkness. It is no longer a decorative feature, but a living companion, its constant motion a counterpoint to the stillness of the stone. You follow the rhythm of the water with your mind, letting it carry you toward the edge of unconsciousness. The world is small now, reduced to the fountain, the walls, and the stars. As you finally move toward your sleeping chamber, you do so with the knowledge that the fortress is secure. The gates are shut, the watchmen are on the walls, and the gods are in their temples. The city of Rome has finished its labors, and you, as one of its sons, are free to surrender to the night. You close your eyes, and the last thing you hear is the faint, fading echo of that metallic thud, a final, ironclad promise of safety that follows you into the deep, restorative landscape of your dreams.
The moon rises slowly, a brilliant silver coin minted in the celestial treasury, hanging with heavy grace over the winding curves of the Tiber River. The sky, now a deep and impenetrable velvet, provides the perfect backdrop for this lunar ascent. From your vantage point on the Palatine, the city's high sanctuary, the moon appears almost tangible, a serene guardian watching over the 7 hills. Its light is not the aggressive gold of the sun, but a cool, restorative white that settles upon the landscape like a layer of fine, luminous dust. As the moonlight strikes the surface of the river, it reflects back in a shimmering, broken line that traces the Tiber's ancient path. The water acts as a liquid mirror, but one that is constantly in motion, fracturing the silver reflection into 1,000 dancing shards. This line of light serves as a radiant spine for the city, connecting the dark bulk of the Aventine to the shadowed plains beyond. It is a visual bridge between the heavens and the earth, a shimmering path that seems to lead toward the very horizon of eternity. The river flows on below, a silent and powerful force that remains indifferent to the passing of hours. It is the Tiberus Pater, the father of the city, a muscular current that has carved the geography of Rome's destiny. In the silver dimness, the water looks like molten lead, heavy and purposeful as it pushes toward the sea. You can sense the immense weight of the water, a geological persistence that makes the frantic movements of the daytime city seem like the fluttering of a moth's wings against a mountain. This water has witnessed the entire arc of the Roman story. It has seen the rise of legendary kings and the dramatic, blood-stained fall of republics. It flowed past the feet of Romulus as he traced the first furrow, and it carried the echoes of Caesar's crossing of the Rubicon. To watch the Tiber at night is to look upon a witness to history, a fluid scroll that has recorded every triumph and tragedy of the Roman people. The river does not remember in the way humans do, but it carries the residue of every era in its deep, dark silt. You watch the light play on the ripples, a hypnotic and chaotic movement that draws your eyes and holds them captive. The surface of the water is never truly flat. It is a complex texture of eddies, swirls, and miniature waves, each one catching the moonlight for a fraction of a second before vanishing into the dark. This constant rhythmic flickering creates a visual lullaby, a shimmering pulse that demands nothing from you but your silent observation. It is the purest form of Roman contemplatio, a focused stillness that yields a profound sense of clarity. The movement of the light slows your thoughts to a crawl, dragging them down into the slow, steady pace of the current. The rapid-fire concerns of the day, the prices in the market, the rumors in the subura, the political tensions of the Senate are pulled under the surface and washed away. Your mind becomes as fluid as the river itself, losing its rigid edges and expanding to fill the quiet, moonlit space. In this state of suspension, you are no longer a creature of logic or worry, but a creature of pure perception. The air rising from the riverbank is cool and carries the scent of reeds, wet stone, and the deep, fertile mud of the banks. It is a primal, watery smell that contrasts with the perfumed jasmine of your garden, reminding you of the wild, untamed nature that exists just beneath the city's marble skin. This breath of the river is refreshing and ancient, a mineral-heavy draught that tastes of the mountains and the sea. It anchors your senses to the physical reality of the earth, even as the moonlight pulls your spirit toward the sky. In the distance, the bridges spanning the Tiber appear as dark, multi-arched skeletons against the silver water. The Pons Sublicius and the Pons Aemilius stand as stone sentinels, their shadows plunging into the current like anchors. You watch as the light plays through the arches, creating portals of brilliance that the water must pass through.
These structures represent the Roman will to bridge the gap between the wild and the civilized. Yet at night they seem humbled by the river's enduring power, merely ornaments on the body of the ancient stream. The silence of the river is absolute, a heavy, liquid quiet that absorbs all other sounds. The occasional splash of a fish or the soft thud of a moored boat against a wooden pier only serves to emphasize the prevailing stillness. It is a silence that feels like a physical weight, pressing against your ears and encouraging a deeper level of introspection. In this aqueous vacuum, the heartbeat of the city is replaced by the heartbeat of the earth, a slow and steady thrum that resonates through the very foundations of your villa. As you finally turn away from the river to seek your bed, the image of that shimmering, broken line of light remains burned into your mind. The Tiber continues its journey, a silver ribbon winding through the dark heart of the empire, carrying the weight of the past into the mystery of the future. You feel a profound sense of peace, knowing that the river will still be flowing and the moon will still be rising long after the last lamp of the city has gone out. The eternal city is at rest, cradled by the silver water, and you drift with it into the deep, welcoming tide of sleep.
You walk one last time through the hushed expanse of the house, your footsteps making no sound on the polished surfaces. The marble floor beneath your feet has undergone its final transformation of the cycle. It has completely shed the trapped heat of the midday sun and the lingering warmth of the evening. Now the stone feels perfectly neutral, neither cold nor warm, but possessing the startling, frictionless smoothness of deep lake ice. It is a tactile reminder that the day's energy has been fully dissipated, leaving the architecture in a state of thermal repose. The house has become a temple of silence, a sanctuary where every architectural element seems to be holding its breath. The high ceilings, which earlier swallowed the noise of the city, now seem to amplify the profound absence of sound. Even the faint rustle of your tunic against your legs feels like an intrusion into this sacred quiet. It is a silence that is not empty, but heavy with the presence of the building's history and the peaceful weight of the night. You move through this stillness as if moving through deep water, slow and deliberate. The oil lamps, which were so bright and vibrant when first lit, are now burning low, their reservoirs nearly spent. The flames have lost their upward reach, shrinking into tiny pulsing embers of amber that huddle close to the terracotta wicks. The scented olive oil has been reduced to a thin, fragrant film at the bottom of the vessels. These dying lights cast a more intimate, localized glow than before, no longer attempting to illuminate the grand frescoes, but settling for a soft radiance that barely reaches the floor. As the light recedes, the world is reduced to the small, moving circle of visibility that travels with you. Beyond this golden perimeter, the vast rooms of the villa dissolve into a welcoming velvety dark. The corners of the atrium, the deep recesses of the library, and the high arches of the dining hall are all reclaimed by the shadows. This darkness does not feel threatening. It is a soft, protective layer that provides a sense of infinite space. It is the dark of the womb and the dark of the stars, a primal element that invites the mind to expand. You pause in the center of the atrium, looking up through the compluvium at the patch of sky. The stars have shifted their positions since you last looked, marking the slow, inevitable rotation of the heavens. The contrast between the flickering, fragile amber of the lamps and the steady, cold silver of the starlight creates a visual bridge between the domestic and the infernal cosmic. You are standing at the intersection of two worlds, the small, flickering life of the home and the vast, eternal machinery of the universe.
The scent of the house is now a subtle blend of extinguished tapers, cooled stone, and the distant fading ghost of the night-blooming jasmine. It is the aroma of a day that has been fully lived and is now being put to rest. Each breath you take feels lighter, as if the air itself is being purified by the approaching midnight. The complexity of the Roman day, the politics, the trade, the noise, has been distilled into this single, clean moment of sensory minimalism. The shadows on the walls are no longer dancing, they are static and deep, merging with the painted forests of the frescoes to create a dreamscape of silhouettes. The tritons and dolphins on the floor mosaics are lost in the gloom, their stone scales no longer shimmering. The house has returned to its most basic form, a collection of planes and volumes designed to harbor the spirit. In this low light, you see the villa not as a display of wealth, but as a masterpiece of geometry and shadow. You feel a profound sense of closure as you complete your circuit. Every room has been checked, every lamp is fading, and every door is barred. The ritual of the day is finished. The physical exertion of your walks through the forum and the subura and the restorative immersion in the baths have all led to this pinnacle of stillness. Your body is a vessel of quiet energy, harmonized with the rhythm of the architecture and the pulse of the night. The neutrality of the floor beneath your feet seems to ground you even more deeply. It is a solid, unyielding foundation that has supported generations before you and will support generations to come. This contact with the stone is a final grounding cord, a physical anchor that keeps you from drifting away into the vast dark. You are a part of the house, and the house is a part of the city, and the city is a part of the eternal earth. Finally, you reach the door to your bedchamber. You take one last look back at the atrium, where the last lamp flickers once and then expires, leaving the room to the moonlight. The transition is complete. The circle has closed. You step into the dark of your room, carrying the small circle of your own consciousness into the vast, welcoming dark of sleep. The day is done. The city is silent, and the empire rests in the cradle of the night.
You approach the threshold of your sleeping chamber, the final destination of a journey that began with the first gray light of the Tiber. The room is a sanctuary within a sanctuary, a small, intimate space where the grand proportions of the villa give way to the human scale of rest. The air here is stilled, protected from the drafts of the peristyle, and holds a quality of profound expectancy. As you move toward the center of the room, the low amber light of your handheld lamp brushes against the walls, revealing the soft, muted tones of the private frescoes that have watched over your slumber for years. The bed itself is a masterpiece of Roman functionalism and understated luxury. The frame is crafted from polished citrus wood, its dark, swirling grain shimmering faintly in the twilight. Unlike the rigid stone benches of the public spaces, this frame is strung with a sophisticated web of supple leather cords. These cords are tensioned with precision, designed to provide a dynamic, responsive foundation that yields slightly to the body's contours. It is an engineering marvel of the domestic sphere, ensuring that the bed is not just a place to lie, but a platform for total physical restoration. Topped with a thick, generous mattress of the finest Apulian wool, the bed offers a soft but firm invitation to surrender. This wool has been washed, carded, and layered to create a surface that is both insulating and breathable. As you sit on the edge, you feel the mattress compress under your weight, the leather cords beneath shifting silently to distribute the pressure. It is a sensation of being cradled by the earth's own harvest, a soft landing after a day spent navigating the unyielding marble and basalt of the city's streets. The linens are a tactile delight,
woven from high-quality flax that has been bleached by the Mediterranean sun until it possesses a brilliant, ghostly whiteness. As you draw them back, they feel remarkably cool to the touch, a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the oil lamps. They carry the clean, sharp scent of lavender, which has been tucked into the folds of the fabric during the day. This fragrance is a natural sedative, a botanical whisper that clears the mind of the day's residual noise and prepares the senses for the long descent into sleep. As you lie down, the weight of your body is perfectly and instantaneously supported. The transition from standing to reclining is a moment of profound physical relief. The vertical pressure on your spine, accumulated through hours of walking the forum and the subura, is finally neutralized. Your limbs feel long and heavy, sinking into the wool and leather with a sense of homecoming. The bed does not just hold you, it absorbs you, becoming an extension of your own weary frame. You feel the gravity of the earth pulling you gently toward rest, a sensation as old as the Palatine Hill itself. This is not the heavy, exhausting gravity of labor, but a nurturing force that anchors you to the core of the world. In the stillness of the room, you become acutely aware of the planet's silent downward pull, a steady hand that has guided every Roman generation toward the same nightly surrender. It is a universal law made personal, a celestial mandate to cease and be still. Your breathing begins to slow, falling into a rhythmic cadence that matches the quiet pulse of the darkened villa. With every exhale, the last flickers of the day's mental images, the glint of a bronze statue, the splash of a fountain, the swirl of a mosaic, fade into a soft, monochromatic blur. The violet hour has passed, the blue hour is gone, and you are now a citizen of the black hour, where sight is replaced by the deep internal textures of the spirit. The world outside the chamber walls has effectively ceased to exist. The silence of the room is absolute, yet it feels filled with the presence of the night. You can hear the distant, rhythmic creak of the house as it settles, a sound like a great wooden ship at anchor. This domestic heartbeat is a comforting reminder of the stability of your life. You are protected by layers of brick, stone, and law, but in this moment you are most protected by the simple, ancient reality of the bed and the blankets. You are safe in the heart of the empire, but more importantly, you are safe in the heart of your home. As your eyes finally close, the scent of the lavender seems to intensify, creating a fragrant bridge into the world of dreams. Your thoughts become fluid and associative, no longer bound by the logic of the forum. You are drifting on the current of the Tiber, floating in the steam of the caldarium, and walking through the swaying wheat fields of the frescoes. The boundaries of the self are softening, melting into the vast, welcoming darkness that has claimed the city. The final sensation is one of total, unshakable tranquility. The day has been honored, the rituals have been observed, and the body has been cared for. You sink deeper into the wool and the leather, the gravity of the earth finally claiming you completely. The eternal city continues its slow nocturnal rotation, but for you, time has come to a beautiful silver-gray standstill. You surrender to the dark, falling into a deep and restorative sleep, while the stars of Rome keep their silent watch over the mountain of stone you call home.
You reach out, your fingers moving through the cool air of the sleeping chamber toward the final source of light. With a steady, practiced motion, you pinch the wick of the last oil lamp. The tiny amber flame, which had been the rhythmic heartbeat of the room, vanishes instantly. For a fleeting heartbeat, a minuscule, glowing red ember remains, a solitary point of heat in the encroaching dark, before it too pales and fades into a wisp of gray smoke. The transition is absolute. The artificial world of fire is extinguished, and the room is surrendered to the ancient, natural governance of the night. Almost immediately, the chamber is flooded with the soft, blue-gray light of the moon,
pouring in from the high windows and the open peristyle beyond. This lunar glow is not like the aggressive, directional light of the sun. It is a diffused, ethereal wash that seems to emanate from the very air itself. It transforms the room into a study of silver and shadow, a world of muted tones where every surface is rendered in a spectrum of slate, ash, and mercury. The sharp edges of the day are replaced by a soft, luminous uncertainty that invites the spirit to expand and settle. As your eyes adjust to this new palette, the familiar shapes of your home begin to emerge from the darkness in their most peaceful state. The heavy citrus wood chest, the fluted curve of a marble pedestal, and the draped fabric of the window hangings all reveal themselves as silent, solid companions. In this low light, the furniture loses its utilitarian identity and becomes sculptural, a series of serene forms that anchor the room. You see your home not as a theater of activity, but as a still life of sanctuary, a collection of objects that are resting as deeply as you are. The frescoes on the walls, once vibrant with the golds and greens of the countryside, are now reduced to subtle gradients of gray. The painted birds and trees look like memories rather than images, a ghostly forest that borders your sleep. This visual simplification is deeply restorative. The brain, no longer forced to process 1,000 colors and details, finally begins to disengage. The room has become a visual void, a clean slate that allows your internal world to become the primary landscape. The silence that follows the extinguishing of the lamp is absolute, a thick, comforting layer of velvet that seems to press gently against your ears. It is a silence so profound that it has a physical weight, a soft pressure that muffles the internal chatter of the mind. In the absence of sound, the space of the room feels as though it has doubled in size. You are no longer confined by the walls of the villa, but a part of the vast, quiet expanse of the Roman night, a silence that stretches from the Palatine to the furthest edges of the empire. Within this velvet quiet, you become aware of the most delicate sounds, the rhythmic, almost imperceptible whisper of your own breath and the steady, slow thrum of your heart. These are the sounds of a body that has found its equilibrium. The frantic pace of the morning's business and the heavy humidity of the afternoon's baths are now distant echoes, replaced by the simple, singular music of life in repose. You are harmonized with the stillness of the stone and the slow, celestial movement of the stars. The air in the chamber has grown crisp and thin, carrying the mineral scent of the moon-cooled marble and the last faint trace of the lavender from your linens. It is a neutral, purifying atmosphere that feels as though it is rinsing your lungs with every inhale. The heavy, floral intoxication of the jasmine from the courtyard has been filtered by the distance, arriving now as a mere suggestion of sweetness. This clarity of the air is the final cleansing of the senses, a cool shroud that prepares you for the transition into the dream state. You watch the way a single beam of moonlight falls across the floor, illuminating a small patch of the mosaic. The tiny stones, which earlier depicted a vibrant sea, now look like a scattering of fallen stars. This light is steady and unblinking, unlike the flickering lamp fire you just extinguished. It is the light of the eternal, a silent witness that has watched over this hill for millennia. Seeing it there on your floor makes you feel as though your home is a sacred vessel, a place where the cosmic and the domestic are momentarily one. Your thoughts begin to drift, no longer anchored to the logic of the day. They become fluid and imagistic, merging with the shadows on the wall and the silver light on the floor. You are no longer the master of the house, the citizen of Rome, or the traveler of the streets. You are merely a spark of consciousness settling into the vast, protective dark. The gravity of the earth feels like a gentle hand pressing you into the wool, an invitation to let go of the last remnants of the self. The final sensation before sleep is one of total, effortless belonging. The gates are barred, the lamps are out, and the silver-gray world is perfectly still. You are safe in the heart of the world's most enduring city, wrapped in a silence that is as old as the hills and as deep as the sea. As your eyes finally close, the blue-gray light fades into the warm, welcoming blackness of a dreamless rest, and the eternal city continues its silent silver rotation through the deep Roman night. Your breath becomes a slow, steady rhythm, falling into a perfect synchronization with the heartbeat of the eternal city itself. In the profound silence of the night, the distinction between your own life and the life of the city begins to dissolve. The rise and fall of your chest matches the invisible pulse of the streets, the temples, and the hills. You are no longer an individual burdened by a name, a rank, or a list of daily chores. You have become an integrated element of a living, breathing monument that transcends the span of a single human life. This rhythmic breathing acts as a bridge, connecting you to the long, unbroken history of this sacred place. You are a single thread in a vast, intricate tapestry that stretches back to the mythical founding and reaches forward into a future that even the gods cannot fully see. In this state of suspension, you feel the presence of those who stood on this hill before you, the kings, the senators, the builders, and the dreamers. Their collective memory is the very air you breathe, a shared legacy of endurance and grandeur that provides a foundation for your own rest. The stone of the villa, the massive tufa blocks of the walls, and the cold marble of the floors all conspire to bring you peace. They are the silent witnesses of time, offering a sense of permanence that the world outside cannot provide. You feel the weight of the architecture, not as a burden, but as a protective shell, a mineral sanctuary that has stood against the wind and the sun for generations. The stone does not change, it merely waits, and in its waiting, it teaches you the value of stillness and the strength of silence. The water, too, plays its part in this conspiracy of calm. From the distant, unseen Tiber to the gentle trickle of the fountain in your courtyard, the element of water serves as a fluid clock, marking the passage of time without the pressure of urgency. You feel the coolness of the water in your memory, the bracing shock of the frigidarium, and the soft mist of the tepidarium. It is a cleansing force that has washed away the dust of the world, leaving your spirit as clear and transparent as a mountain spring. Above you, the stars continue their silent mathematical rotation, providing a celestial canopy of order. They are the same constellations that guided the first Roman shepherds and the same lights that will shine over the ruins of the future. Their distant, cold brilliance offers a perspective that makes all human concerns feel beautifully small. You are cradled by the cosmos, a tiny spark of life nested within a grand, eternal machinery that operates with a precision that no architect could ever hope to replicate. The soil beneath the house, the deep volcanic earth of the Palatine, anchors you to the primordial origins of the world. It is the soil that fed the vineyards, the olive groves, and the wheat fields you tasted in your simple evening meal. This earth is the source of all Roman strength, a dark, fertile reservoir of life that has been tended and fought for since the beginning of time. You feel its gravity pulling you closer, inviting you to rest your weary bones against the very heart of the land. As you drift into the deep, dark sea of sleep, the boundaries of your physical self begin to blur. You are no longer confined by the dimensions of your bed or the walls of your room. Your consciousness expands to fill the entire city, flowing through the empty forums, the silent theaters, and the guarded gates. You are the mist on the river, the shadow on the column, and the scent of the jasmine in the air. You are the city, and the city is you, a unified entity of stone and spirit resting under the watchful eye of the moon.
You are cradled by the memory of Rome, a collective consciousness that is safe and eternal. This memory is not a dead thing found in books, but a living presence that vibrates in every stone and every drop of water. It is a memory of triumph, of law, of art, and of the simple daily beauty of a life well lived. To sleep in Rome is to be held by a mother who has seen everything and fears nothing, a guardian whose power is rooted in the very fabric of existence. The darkness of sleep is not a void, but a rich, textured landscape where the events of the day are transformed into the mythology of the night. The walk through the Subura becomes a journey through a golden labyrinth. The heat of the caldarium becomes the warmth of 1,000 suns. In this dream state, you are free to explore the hidden depths of the city's soul, guided by the internal light of your own peace. You are participating in a ritual of renewal that is old as the hills themselves. Finally, you surrender completely to the dark tide, leaving the world of the senses behind. The eternal city continues its slow, silent vigil, its marble skin glowing under the stars, and its gates locked against the wild. You are rested, you are protected, and you are home. As you sink into the final, deepest layer of sleep, you do so with the absolute certainty that when the first light of dawn touches the top of the Capitoline, you and the city will be there to meet it, eternal and undying.